close my eyes and I see polls. I open my eyes and I see more polls. All these numbers everywhere. Polls don't care. I close my eyes and I see polls.
I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the JB and Sabby show. And you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And happy Halloween, guys. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. What's up, guys? Happy Halloween. I'm sorry, I didn't buy a costume. I've gotten to that age where I don't feel like paying for a Halloween costume. They're expensive. I mean, over here, they start at least $60 for some of these Halloween costumes. So I've gotten past that point in my life. So I just kind of dressed up as a schoolgirl. I'm sorry. I hope this is okay. I don't know if it stands out or not. I should have had some glasses or something like that, but happy Halloween. But yeah, I don't buy the costumes anymore. They're just too expensive. And then you only wear it once a year because you don't want to be the same thing next year for Halloween. So I would buy these Halloween costumes and then I'd wear it once and then it would just kind of sit there. And I was like, why do we pay for all this? You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Anywho, welcome back, guys. This will be my last stream before election night. I will be live here Tuesday night following the election. And I think what I'm going to do is get started with some of these Senate races because that is important while we're waiting for some of the numbers to come in. Eric and I can actually keep an eye on what's happening with those Senate seats because that automatically is going to determine whether or not Kamala Harris or Donald Trump will be able to get what they want accomplished. It's just the reality. So we got to check out what's happening with those Senate seats there. So we'll start with that. And then I'll get into the reporting that's coming in from the different states. I do want to give everybody a heads up. I think we all know some of these swing states, we are not going to get results on Tuesday night. So it may not be until Wednesday, maybe even Thursday before we find out about some of these states. It depends on the turnout. And the turnout appears to be high from what I've seen from the numbers. So just letting you know. But what I will probably do while we are getting into new polls tonight and things are shifting. So I'll probably do a video on Monday or upload a video Monday of any new information with polling before we go into election night on Tuesday. So look forward to that. Okay. Okay, let's go to some of the comments in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Sun Queen, what is up? Enjoyed you on Mark last night. You made me proud, sis. Stood your ground and stayed strong, even though there were a good bit of haters in the chat. Yeah, I couldn't even see the chat. I try not to, when I go into other people's shows, I try not to even pay attention to the chat. So with Mark's show, it's StreamYard. And with StreamYard, you have the option of a private chat or the public chat. And I usually don't click on the public chat. I want to be able to say what I want to say and not, pay attention to what people are saying in the live chat. Just reality. But thank you. Thank you so much. Shout out to my comrade JB says, good evening, everyone. I still predict that Kamala won't win any swing state. But if she were to win one, it would be Pennsylvania. That's interesting. Mark said that last night. But I have my doubts. We shall see on the 5th forehead kisses. Shout out to Mumu Kachu. Thanks again, Sabby, for saying that not all Arabs are Muslim and not all Muslims are Arabs. Even though I'm not American, this Black Muslim is sending good vibes for Jill Stein. Thank you. Shout out to D-Dog. Candy was crazy expensive this year, too. I didn't buy candy this year either. I just realized that. Yeah, because I'm actually going out of town tomorrow. I'm going to be traveling this weekend. So I didn't even buy candy. I'm not a big candy person, by the way. Brian says, happy way too warm Halloween, Sabby. Shout out to Mike says, Sabby, you killed it in the interview with Mark Lamont Hill. Did I? I didn't know. Like I said, I haven't seen reaction or anything like that. But I think for me, I wasn't, for me, it wasn't really about a debate or anything, just a discussion. I think he wanted me to hear his side and I wanted him to hear my side, if that makes sense. But thank you. Josie voted for Jill Stein and Rudolph Ware, New York, write-in today. What's up, Josie? That's what I'm talking about. Shout out to Ashura. I can't wait for this election to be over. You and me both. You and me both. Listen, it's gotten to the point where when I go to bed at night, when I close my eyes, I see polls. I see polls, New York Times, Washington Post, just running through, my brain doesn't shut off immediately when I go to sleep. That's just normally anyway. But when I close my eyes, I see polls. When I open my eyes in the morning, I see polls, poll. So I'm ready for this to all be over as well. So we'll get into some of that. If you haven't done so, make sure that you answer that poll question. And the poll question is pinned to the top of the live chat. And that question says, are the polls underestimating Kamala's support? And I think that is a legitimate question. And you'll see why when we get into some of the newer polls today and some of the other information that has come out recently as of this morning. So we'll get into that as well. Hey. What's up, Iokok? When Mark was asking for context, when you asked if he would vote for someone that killed his family, was crazy. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I was curious about that. That was interesting. Yeah, I was on a Mark Lamont Hill show last night, guys. If you haven't had a chance to see it, go check it out. I thought it was a pretty interesting discussion. JB says, I'm a pole dancer. Well, we have heard it all. Marvin, Sabby, you are a workout machine. Stay away from candy, sugar, bread, pasta, proteins, steak, chicken, fish, veggies. Yeah, I'm not a big candy person. I don't know. It's weird. I think it's because the way I was raised. My mom had a candy jar in the living room, and it was always filled with candy. But she didn't want us to eat it. I still pick on my mom about this till this day. I'm like, Mom, why do we have a candy jar if you don't want people to eat the candy? And she said it wasn't for us. She said the candy was for guests. So every now and then, me and my sister, we would try to sneak a candy, and she would know. She would know if you took one piece of candy. She's like, someone's been in this candy jar. I'm like, how do you know? Crazy stuff, man. Maybe it's a mom thing, right? I think maybe moms know that. Saul says, Bree did an interview with Tavis today. Yes, she did. That was a good one. Yeah, watch that one if you haven't seen it on Bad Faith. That was a good interview. I like that. And Kami says, I'm not big on sugar either. I hate sweet things. Now salty stuff, I gotta watch myself. Yeah, I don't know what. Yeah, I'm not a big candy person. So for me, if I eat, I think I'll have candy if I go to the movies. I'll get two things. I'll split a small popcorn and I'll have Milk Duds. And then I take a Milk Dud and I take the popcorn and I put it together. So you get the sweet and the salty, but other than that, it's weird. Like if I'm watching movies at home, I don't go to the store to get Milk Duds. It's just a movie theater thing. Really weird. Anyway, let's get to the realness. Okay, let's go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. Really do appreciate you. You are doing the damn thing, keeping the lights on around here. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories. Ultimate. There are also Sabinators. Sabsters, they're there too. Don't forget about them. And there are also Sabbies. We like those guys as well. We like them as well. Hey. And don't forget about members holding down the fort. All of their names are listed here. And you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. We have a new Sabby patron we want to give a shout out to. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Anita Hunter Wood. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Anita Hunter Wood. Sounds like that would be the name of an author, like an author. I wonder, is Anita an author? Yeah. Oh, no. Rashik says, Sabby, if you show a CNN poll, it's junk. Oh, no. We're going to talk about. We're going to talk about that. I was going to tell people about that. CNN polls and Fox News polls. I try not to, if you guys notice when I show you polls, I try not to show you the CNN poll or the Fox News poll, because Fox News poll was obviously heavily favors the Republican candidate and CNN poll will heavily favor the Democrat candidate, right? So that's why I usually will show you, we're going to look at Nate Silver's forecast tonight. I'll usually show you Nate Silver, Washington Post, New York Times, Real Clear Politics will show that as well. And I try to remember to tell you, like, if one leans right or if one leans left, so that you can see a full picture there. I think that's important. So, we're going to dive in, guys. If you haven't already done so, go ahead and smash that like button. Thank you very much. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. Thank you. Okay. Let's go ahead and share that beautiful thumbnail. Ladies and gentlemen, I think the first story is going to make you guys laugh. So let's start off with a laugh tonight. How about that? Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are discussing Barack Obama and Bernie Sanders shame voters, and they're shaming voters over Gaza. We're going to add Bill Clinton into the mix too. Bill Clinton said some pretty cringeworthy things about the Palestinian people. I don't even know who thought this was a good idea. We'll get into all of that. We're also going to discuss Kamala moves up in the new polls. We're going to get into some of those new polls that were released. Kamala Harris is seeing movement in 2 particular swing states, and we're going to get into that. We're also going to discuss Jill Stein worries AOC. There is something else that is happening with Jill Stein's campaign. And tonight you're going to see it's not just Michigan. Yeah, you guys are going to see it's not just Michigan. There is a state I kind of slept on when it came to Jill Stein, and I'm going to get into some of that data tonight. We're also going to discuss, of course, Biden's garbage comment. I love the look there in that picture on Biden's face, because I feel like his facial expression says, look, damn it, I'm in this race. Biden has been, we'll get into it. We'll get there. And we're going to go over the Montana and the Nebraska ballot measures for November. So can't believe it. Election day is almost here. Can you? Hey. Skylar says it's crazy that we can't shame our leaders into ending a genocide, but they think they can shame us into voting for more death. It is crazy, right? Really crazy. They're using control of the narrative, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go ahead and get started with this first story here. You know, ever since Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race, he's been kind of salty. He had an appearance on The View, and he said that there was nothing wrong with him. I think we all know that that is not the case. He looks bitter. Joe looks angry. And from what I read, apparently behind the scenes, he's apparently still not speaking to Nancy Pelosi. There's a lot going on there, but Joe just seems kind of salty. And so salty to the point that I don't think he thought before he made this statement. Joe Biden made a statement about Donald Trump supporters. He pulls it back and says he wasn't talking about the supporters, but I think he was. Let's go ahead and get into that. Shout out to Hotspot for this clip here. Tonight,
there's new reporting about Joe Biden and a moment that explains why things are the way that they are. Sources tell CNN that the president is in do no harm mode, stapling himself to the bench at the direction of the Harris campaign. Well, even from the White House, he may have done some pretty significant harm in the final week of the campaign. Just listen to this, and you be the judge.
And just the other day, a speaker at his rally called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Well, let me tell you something. I don't know the Puerto Rican that I know, or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware. They're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization of Latino is unconscionable, and it's un-American. It's totally contrary to everything we've done, everything we've been.
So, yeah, probably not the best thing to say this close to the election. And I think, again, I don't know what he was thinking when he made that comment. But again, I feel like he's just been kind of salty since he dropped out of this race, but definitely not the best thing to say. And what's interesting is it was just a couple of days ago, you know, the Democratic Party was criticizing the remarks of Tony Hinchcliffe at the MAGA rally in New York City about Puerto Ricans. Interestingly enough, they didn't say anything about the things he said about Black people, as something I noticed there. And they used that to their advantage, right? Like Kamala Harris immediately issued a response. Sunny Hostin on The View said, this Latina is da-da-da. And they really ate that up, right? And now it's like the Democratic Party has to do damage control for comments coming on their own side, right? Like the comments that Joe Biden made, like calling Trump supporters garbage. So doesn't this kind of remind you of what Hillary Clinton said in 2016 when she called Trump supporters deplorables? I don't think this is a good idea. I think if anything, like you should never criticize the voters. Like don't call them names. And some of these people sometimes can be moved, right? What about the people who were undecided? What about the people who still haven't decided if they want to vote for Trump or Kamala or third party or whatever? If they may have been kind of leaning towards like Kamala, maybe some of those people now hear that and are like, okay, well, forget that. I'm going to vote for, you know, they're going to vote for Trump or something like that. I said the same thing with the Puerto Rican comment, right? Like some of those people that may have been on the fence that could move them in some way, shape, or form. So not a good idea this close to the election, for sure.
Joining us now, Franklin Leonard. He is in our fifth seat. He's the founder and CEO of The Blacklist. That was a moment, and not a moment that the Harris campaign wanted. I want to just read. This is Biden on X trying to clarify all of this. He says, earlier today, I referenced to the hateful rhetoric about Puerto Rico spewed by Trump supporters at his Madison Square Garden rally as garbage, which is the only word I can think of to describe it. His demonization of Latinos is unconscionable. That's all I meant to say.
Yeah. Oh, I think my camera's a little. Oh, I'm sorry. That moved a little bit. Did I move it too much? There we go. Okay, there we go. So yeah, I think the comment was about his supporters. It's just like, come on, it is what it is. And it also comes across as kind of classist. This is another thing that I want to mention. it kind of bothers me. And even when we look at some of these stats about the polling, it kind of bothers me when I hear people say, you know, these non-college educated voters, like that bothers me. And I'm college educated, and I don't like the feel of it. I don't like the sound of it, because it kind of gives people the impression that, like, oh, these non-college educated voters, these are people voting for Donald Trump. And it kind of gives people, it can give people the impression that they're not smart enough to know what they're doing. So I just don't like that. And I understand they have this, they want demographics, so they need that for like polls and like data. I get that, but I was never really fond of that, to be honest. Now, Kamala Harris did issue a response about Joe Biden's comments. I think you want to hear this. They caught her off the plane. They came right to her coming off of the plane.
Well, last night was a good night. We had the chance in front of 100,000 people to talk about what's at stake in this election, and to point out that the American people have a real choice and a very important decision to make in 6 days. And it is about who will not only lead the country, but occupy the White House, where critical decisions are made that include how we think about who we are as a nation, and whether we are going to be a nation of people who attempt to unify and break through this era of divisiveness, or are we going to be a nation of people who have the president stewing in the Oval Office over his enemies list? And I think that the turnout last night and the kind of feedback that we are receiving is a strong indication that the American people actually want a leader who is going to bring us together. And that's the type of leader I intend to be.
Have you talked to President Biden since his comment last night about garbage?
Listen, I think that, first of all, he clarified his comments, but let me be clear. I strongly disagree with any criticism of people based on who they vote for. You heard my speech last night and continuously throughout my career. I believe that the work that I do is about representing all the people, whether they support me or not. And as President of the United States, I will be a president for all Americans, whether you vote for me or not. That is my.
Okay, so the reason why I wanted you to hear that is because it goes to show you that when Kamala Harris wants to break away from Joe Biden, she can. That's why I wanted you to see her response there, right? So this is an example. Again, of course, she said, well, he clarified, but she also said that she disagreed. So again, like if she wants to break away, she can. She can do that when she wants to. Now, I want to show you something else here on CNN. You will see they did have a discussion about this, more of like a roundtable discussion. I want to bring in this part here.
It's a nothing burger.
I couldn't agree more.
I mean, y'all are trying to make this. Listen,
You don't get to have it both ways. You can't say it's a joke, and so but it's serious, and let's do round the clock media coverage when it's a comedian. But when the president of the United States says it, no, we'll give him a free pass.
You know what's crazy? I want you to take the president of the United States to task. You do that, and I want you to do that as well. Take him to task and say that his comments were inappropriate. Actually, I want you to get a warm, cozy blanket and say it reminds you of 2016 when Hillary Clinton called us deplorables, right? And then what I'm going to tell you is the fact that Kamala Harris got on stage tonight in front of 100,000 people and talked about the America that she wanted. I'm going to tell you about the fact that Kamala Harris said that she's going out on the campaign trail with people like Liz Cheney, that she has Bush's campaigning for, that she's going to put a Republican in her cabinet, that there is nobody on God's green earth that can look you directly in the face with any level of intellectual honesty and tell you that the America that Kamala Harris wants versus the America that Donald Trump wants is the exact same. And so, yeah.
So, but they both want Republicans in their cabinet. Like, I don't know why Bakari Sellers is using that as a bragging point. I actually think that's a bad idea. I don't know why they continue to do that. But one thing that I do want to say is that let's just try to remove the people. Let's switch the people. Let's pretend it wasn't Joe Biden that said that. Let's pretend it was Donald Trump that said that. Would Bakari Sellers say it's a nothing burger then? No, he wouldn't. They would complain about it. because he's going to defend his party. Vice versa. If we were watching Fox News and instead of Biden making that comment, if it would have been Donald Trump that made that comment, they would have defended it because, again, they're going to protect their party. So I think you see the hypocrisy here when it comes to the two-party system and the way that people respond to behavior.
Yes. Listen, you want to talk about foot and mouth disease? That's Joe Biden. Do we want him on the campaign trail? You know, the sources that we have, we actually do want him on the campaign trail. Contrary to popular belief, because he still does well.
I will say though, Bakari,
certain demographics.
he was in his house, the White House. He was in his house doing this, and the reporting is that there are places that he can be useful, but he's not everywhere like you might expect a sitting president to be for his vice president.
I don't know that I would expect this president to be everywhere in this moment. I mean, look, a critical element, any coach will tell you, any CEO will tell you, a critical element of running a team and winning is assessing the strengths and weaknesses of your team members and making sure you allocate them in the right way. Joe Biden has never been a big arena speaker. He's never been the most fluid speaker. And by the way, as someone who had a stutter growing up, it's very obvious to me that there's an apostrophe at the end of supporters there. He was referring to the garbage spewed by supporters, not simply the supporters themselves. But Joe Biden has been on the campaign trail. He's best getting ice cream in Maryland like he was today. He's best showing moments of empathy in Arizona like he was last week. He's best with union folks as he was in Pittsburgh last week as well. You use people where they are best. You put Obama in a bigger.
Yeah, I agree with them there. I'm not going to play this whole thing. It goes on kind of long, but I agree with them there that you use their strength. You don't use their weakness, right? So you use people in areas where they're strong. I think it's best that Joe Biden's not everywhere with this campaign. Okay. That's probably a good idea. Just keeping that real. Now, of course, Donald Trump decided to play on this, and he played on it in such an interesting way. I want to show you his first response to this, and then we're going to get to his garbage truck rally.
I mean, it just shows the Democrats.
Oh, wait a minute. That's the wrong video. Oh, that's the right video. Sorry about that, guys. Oh, we're coming to that. So here's the response on Fox News. Sorry about that. Wanted to show you both sides.
I mean, it just shows the Democrats and Harris's desperation. I mean, I think they're desperate. They see the numbers, they see the people, all the enthusiasm behind, Donald Trump and the Republicans. So, it's like Hillary Clinton calling us deplorables. I mean, it just shows the Democrats and Harris's desperation. I mean, I think they're desperate. They see the numbers, they see the people, all the enthusiasm behind, Donald Trump and the Republicans. So, it's like Hillary Clinton calling us deplorables. I mean, it just shows.
Yeah, so definitely not. It just wasn't a good idea. Just like I said about the comments that were made from the comedian at the rally, I told you the same thing. That wasn't the right place to do that. You're trying to win supporters. You're trying to bring people over to your side. It just wasn't the right event for that. And Trump's campaign, they said they distanced themselves from him apparently since then. But Donald Trump did respond. I want to show the first one, and then we'll get into the garbage truck rally.
That's terrible. That's what it says. That's what it says. So you have, remember Hillary, she said deplorable, and then she said irredeemable, right? But she said deplorable, that didn't work out. Garbage, I think, is worse, right? But he doesn't know, you have to please forgive him. Please forgive him, for he not knoweth what he said. These people, it's terrible, terrible. Terrible to say a thing like that, but he really doesn't know. He really, honestly, he doesn't. And I'm convinced that he likes me more than he likes Kamala. Convinced. But that's...
Wow. So, yeah, of course, he was going to respond to that, right? Yeah, not a good idea this close to Election Day. It is what it is. But of course, Donald Trump decided to take this to another level. And this is going to make you laugh. And honestly, I'll say it like this. Look, I don't support Trump. I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. I don't support Kamala. I'm not a fan of Kamala. But I will say this, whoever put him up to this idea, this was actually smart. This was actually a genius idea. After being called garbage, Donald Trump got a garbage truck. This is crazy. Watch this.
Donald Trump focusing today on President Biden's comment last night, where he appeared to refer to the former president's supporters as garbage. Of course, the White House has gone out of their way to clarify that, to say that he was speaking about a singular person, referring to that comedian on Sunday. The president himself even posting about this. You can see Donald Trump tonight. He was in Battleground, Wisconsin, in a Trump campaign branded garbage truck as he wore an orange vest.
How do you like my garbage truck? This truck is in honor of Kamala and Joe Biden. Joe Biden should be ashamed of himself if he knows what he's even doing. And she should be ashamed because she shouldn't let him do it.
Can you guys believe this? Like, who else would do this? Who else will come up with this? Right? So again, that was actually a smart PR move. He's like, okay, you said that we're garbage. Let me get in the garbage truck. And then that also signals a message to those type of workers, right? Like, think about people that are like, I hate calling them garbage men, but think about people that are sanitation workers. Like, think about those people. And then they see him in a garbage truck. Now, obviously, Donald Trump is a billionaire. He's not going to be, taking out the trash, picking up people's trash. But it was a smart PR move. So he basically found a way to make lemonade out of the lemons.
She's the vice president, but I assume she's acting as the president. She should never have let that happen. I hope you enjoyed this garbage truck.
Now, that comment came a few hours after we heard from Vice President Harris herself on this. People were wondering what she would have to say about that comment last night. Listen to her in her own words on it this morning.
I think that the president has explained what he meant, but I've said it earlier. I strongly disagree with any criticism of people based on who they vote for. And I've made that clear throughout my career, including my speech last night before I think this all happened, which is I intend to be a president for all Americans, and including those who may not vote for me in this election.
So this garbage truck thing is not the first time that Donald Trump, a former president, but also former reality TV star, has produced events to drive a message in a way that's hard to look away from. That's the point, right?
I'm sorry. It's funny. I thought we could start out with a laugh. Like that was great PR, I would say. Holy smokes, man. But there's more. Even at the rally, and you'll see this here as well, right? Of course, he decided to dance in the orange vest. And I can't play the music because, can't play music on here. But this is what I'm talking about. So he ate this up. He really took this and ate it up. Like that. Holy smokes. That was actually smart. And the crowd is just, they're eating it up, right? They're eating it up. So he did also say something while he was wearing that orange vest in the rally. I want to bring that up here as well. Like, he really took that and ran with it.
And I have to begin by saying 250 million Americans are not garbage. This week, Kamala has been comparing her political opponents to the most evil mass murderers in history. And now, speaking on a call for her campaign last night, crooked Joe Biden finally said what he and Kamala really think of our supporters. He called them garbage. No way. No way. And they actually mean it, even though, without question, my supporters are far higher quality than Crooked Joe or Lion Kamala. Higher quality. My response to Joe and Kamala is very simple. You can't lead America if you don't love Americans. It's true. You can't be president if you hate the American people, which I believe they do.
So yeah, he took that and he ran with it. We live in a cartoon. I really do believe this. I've said this a number of times. We live in a cartoon because people are already making, of course, little memes about this. Somebody turned him into an Oompa Loompa. That's what I told you. I'm telling you. It's a cartoon. And sometimes I wake up and I'm like, we're in a forever meme or something like that. Like, I just can't. Oh my God. That's funny. That's funny. I don't know who made this, but and whoever shared it, Alex Cole shared it, but he was like, okay, who made this? Like, so I don't know. We could all start off with a good laugh, right? So I just think it's interesting, again, when you look at both of those parties, right? It was just a couple days ago, the Democratic Party was complaining about comments that was said at Trump's rally. And now you have the Republican Party complaining about comments that, the Democrats said. So very interesting. Very interesting. Let's go to some of the comments here. Oh, my God. Thank you. Roger says, I'll keep up and inform live as the results of the BIs come in. Thanks. Awesome, Roger. Thank you. Thank you. I know myself. ABC channel reported Kamala won PA today, messed up. I saw a little bit about that. From what I understand, that was a model. They were testing that or something, and it wasn't supposed to appear on the screen. That's what I understand. But I have to look more into that. That was supposed to be like a demo. Thank you, Kinman. Abby Phillip is a fox. Okay. Rando Girl says, who are these undecided people? Crazy. I know you would think more people by now know who they want to vote for, but some people still have not made up their mind. And some people won't make up their mind until they arrive at the polls. But I will say, I think the majority of people know, right? Jay Tolbert says, thank you. Happy Hallows Eve, Sabby. Voted for Jill Stein back on Sunday as a write-in here in Illinois. It felt damn good not voting for a genocide. You doing the damn thing, Jay. Tim, though, said, where's your 100K YouTube plaque, Sabs? It's over there. I know. I'm supposed to put it behind me. I have to figure out where to put it. I'll figure that out at some point. I'll figure it out. Thank you, Lauren. Our COSOS leaked passwords to the Dominion machines. She also tried to have Trump kicked off the ballot. I wrote my reps to demand she resign. Holy crap. Our CO, is that supposed to be Colorado SOS? Crazy stuff, man. Crazy. Thank you, Carlette. I don't believe that Kamala is leading. The final number of the overall tally probably won't be finalized until November 7th. As a USAF veteran, if she wins, I am leaving the country. I'm hearing that on both sides, actually. I heard that in 2016, too. Like, people said they were leaving, and I'm like, you guys are all still here. But I don't know if we'll necessarily, you'll see when we get to that story. You'll see. Bad Wolf said Jill Stein is pulling ahead in all states. We're going to get to some of her numbers when we get to the Jill Stein story. Thank you, Carlette. Irregardless of who wins, the draft will be installed for age 18 to 35 for all males and females. World War III is inevitable by the USA and life will be unbearable. They both are puppets for the elites. Correct, Carlette. Thank you, Cool Blue. Part of the reason why Trump has the advantage, he connects and stays connected with the people. Harris and the D's show us they have no joy. Thank you, Trusting Success. His new name should be Baby Bitter Biden. Yeah, he's feeling some kind of way, huh? Biden is cranky. Thank you, Marvin. You have to thank a sanitation worker. Thank you, Cool Blue. Discovered a tweet that says Hefty endorses Trump. Hefty. The trash bags? Thank you, Blueser. Trump looks like Grimace cosplaying as Ronald McDonald standing at the fry machine. Thank you, Marcus. What are your thoughts about ACP? Any chance RBN join? What is ACP? You'll have to tell me what that is. I'm not good with the abbreviations. I'm gonna tell you right now. I'm a boomer when it comes to abbreviations. Thank you, Crowder. Registered Dim here voted Jill Stein F genocide. What's up? Everybody see this? Registered Democrats voted Jill Stein F genocide. Wait till we get to the Jill Stein story. Wait till we get to that. Okay. Go ahead and smash that like button, guys. Thank you so much. And we're going to move on to the next story. We are making good time. Oh, here we go. Marcus said American Communist Party. So I am very hesitant to join any political party. Very hesitant. I've been a part of the Democratic Party for a long time. Left the Democratic Party, became registered no party affiliate here in Massachusetts. I'm very hesitant to join any political party. I'm not even a Green Party member, right? I support Jill, but I'm not a Green Party member either. So that's my take. I can't speak for everyone else. All righty, let's get to the next story. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, the worst thing I think that you can do is try to shame people into voting for you. Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, and Bernie Sanders, BBB, they have decided to do just that. And it is around the genocide in Gaza. I don't know how more tone deaf you could be, right? Especially Barack Obama. And we're actually going to start out with him. Let's start with Barack Obama, because he definitely knows better. Definitely knows better. This is him here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He has some words for the people who don't want to support Kamala Harris because of the genocide.
If you're a Christian and you care deeply about the abortion issue, I understand that, but does that mean you'll support somebody who seems to violate pretty much every precept of the Ten Commandments? If you are a service member and you're somewhat conservative and you're used to voting Republican, I can understand it, but somebody who genuinely does not believe in duty and honor and does not understand why anybody would sacrifice themselves on behalf of their country, why would you do that? If you're a Muslim American and you're upset about what's happening in the Middle East, why would you put your faith in somebody who passed a Muslim ban and repeatedly suggested that somehow you weren't part of our American community?
So here's the thing. And I told you guys, like, I don't understand the Muslim voters that decided to vote for Donald Trump. That is not the direction that I think that you should take. But I would imagine, again, you know, those particular voters may be a little bit more conservative anyway. But what Barack Obama fails to mention is the fact that a lot of Muslim voters are supporting Jill Stein, not Donald Trump. And you really can't, like, how can I say this politely? You really can't go to the Muslim community and try to shame them into supporting the same administration that is actively killing their people. Like, you can't, you really can't, right? And I feel like Barack Obama, he knows better, because he actually used to be really good on Palestine. A lot of people may not realize this. Barack Obama was good on Palestine until AIPAC got a hold of him. He actually was pro-Palestinian before AIPAC got to him. He understood the Palestinian cause and agreed with the Palestinian cause. But once AIPAC got a hold of him, Barack Obama changed his message. So you can't, this is a bad strategy. Like, you cannot say to these people, well, how dare you vote for? And I get it. I don't understand why people would want to support Trump either. But that particular community, you can't guilt trip them for not supporting the administration that is killing their people, starving their people. No food has entered Gaza since October 1st. So you can't do that to those people. Last night, I asked this question to Mark Lamont Hill, and I said, if somebody killed your family, would you vote for them? If somebody killed your family and they're running for office, would you vote for them? Because I know that I wouldn't. And you can't make those people feel guilty for not wanting to do that. They're standing on principle. That's more than I can say for some of us, right? So a bad strategy here.
If you're an African American or Latino, if you're from Puerto Rico and you see somebody whose values seem to indicate that you're not part of their equation, how do you think it's okay? How can you tell yourself it's okay as long as our side wins?
Well, we can say the same thing about Joe Biden, Barack Obama. We could say the same thing considering some of the comments and legislation that he passed against African Americans. We can say the same thing. And it's one thing, and this is something I want people to understand. Like, I don't agree with these comments, but it's one thing to make a comment. It's another thing to actively create legislation that hurts and harms that community. So Joe Biden's crime bills, this is what a lot of people don't realize. There are a number of us in the Black community that know people that were directly impacted by Joe Biden's crime bills over weed. It's a plant. So these are the things that sometimes people don't think about. But Barack Obama, he knows better. But people can say that same thing about him. And you told people to come out and support Joe Biden, right? So I told you Obama knows better, and you'll see that he knows better. Now, here's Obama. This is what he said about Palestinians years ago. See, video lives on forever, fam. So we'll see if we refresh it. Sorry. There we go.
Right to self-determination. Their right to justice must also be recognized. And put yourself in their shoes. Look at the world through their eyes. It is not fair that a Palestinian child cannot grow up in a state of their own. Living their entire lives with the presence of a foreign army that controls the movements, not just of those young people, but their parents, their grandparents, every single day. It's not just when settler violence against Palestinians goes unpunished. It's not right to prevent Palestinians from farming their lands or restricting a student's ability to move around the West Bank or displace Palestinian families from their homes. Neither occupation nor expulsion is the answer. Just as Israelis built a state in their homeland, Palestinians have a right to be a free people in their own land.
See the difference? He knows a lot about Israel. He knows about Gaza. Again, like I said, Barack Obama knows exactly what was happening to those people. And as much as people want to bring up the genocide in Gaza, this is Obama here talking about the West Bank also. So when people say, when Kamala Harris says we got to get the hostages back, we got to bring the hostages home, she's limiting Palestinian suffering to Gaza. And she's not talking about the West Bank. That's on purpose, because when they start to talk about the West Bank, then it's kind of hard to say Israel has a right to defend herself, right? Because Hamas is not in the West Bank. Many of you probably wondering what happened to Barack Obama. There's even this part here. People may not remember this. Obama had strong words on Israel and Palestine at his last press conference. Too little, too late. Listen to this.
I don't see how this issue gets resolved in a way that maintains Israel as both Jewish and a democracy. Because if you do not have two states, then in some form or fashion you are extending an occupation. Functionally, you end up having one state in which millions of people are disenfranchised and operate as second-class residents.
So you see, notice he mentions the occupation. So he knew exactly what was happening to the Palestinian people.
You can't even call them citizens necessarily. The growth of the settlements are creating a reality on the ground that increasingly will make a two-state solution impossible.
That was his last press conference. And Sean says 2 a.m. thoughts. Why is Obama talking about Israel-Palestine peace right now? Just before leaving, he was in office for 8 goddamn years. So does everybody see, how they do this? And there's something else too. I spoke to a viewer of the show earlier who was explaining to me how the Arab American community, particularly in Dearborn, why they didn't come out and heavily support Hillary Clinton the way that they did Joe Biden, the way they did Obama. And it reminded me of something. Barack Obama, when he was running, remember, he was talking about peace. Remember, he was talking about peace in the Middle East and all that stuff. And he really sounded really progressive. Everybody remember? So they heavily came out and supported Barack Obama's campaign in 2008. And then Obama got elected. And guess what he did? He bombed Syria. He started bombing Syria. So how do you think that made Muslim voters feel that came out and supported Barack Obama? How do you think that made them feel? So there's that. Then Hillary Clinton decides to run for president after Barack Obama. Remember, Hillary Clinton did not win in Michigan. Didn't get Dearborn. I wonder why. Why would they be willing to trust again? Why would they be willing to? Plus, Hillary wasn't even that nice. She didn't have charisma either. So there's that. You can add that to that. And then Trump won. And then there were other things that happened, right? Like the Muslim ban, Trump wanting to, saying, oh, we got to get rid, moving the embassy, et cetera. And then there was that fear. So when Biden ran against Donald Trump, it was, okay, we got to get this guy out. We don't know what he's going to do, what else he's going to do to our community. So then they came out and they heavily supported Biden. So Muslim voters right now, a lot of them feel betrayed by the Biden administration. They came out and they delivered for him. I'm going to show you a little bit of the numbers tonight. And they feel that Biden-Harris administration betrayed them. Now they have the genocide under this administration. So where are Arab American voters and Muslim voters supposed to go? This is why I continue to say nobody owns your vote. They obviously, a lot of them feel like they don't have a place in the Democratic Party. A lot of them feel like they don't have a place in the Republican Party. Remember, after 9/11, there was a lot of Islamophobia. And we're seeing Islamophobia again. So where are they supposed to go? So when they get pushed back because they want to support Jill Stein, it just makes me want to pull my hair out, because I'm like, what do you expect them to do? They came out, they delivered for you, and you betrayed them. But it's not just Barack Obama. Bernie Sanders is also, here he comes. Let me purge you into the Dems, even though they did you so wrong. They did you so wrong. Come on in.
I understand that there are millions of Americans who disagree with President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris on the terrible war in Gaza. I am one of them. While Israel had a right to defend itself against the horrific Hamas terrorist attack of October 7th, which killed 1,200 innocent people and took 250 hostages, it did not have the right to wage an all-out war against the entire Palestinian people. It did not have the right to kill 42,000 Palestinians, 2/3 of whom were children, women, and the elderly, or injure over 100,000 people in Gaza. It did not have the right to destroy Gaza's infrastructure, housing, and healthcare system. It did not have the right to bomb every one of Gaza's 12 universities. It did not have the right to block humanitarian aid, causing massive malnutrition in children and, in fact, starvation. And that is why I am doing everything I can to block U.S. military aid and offensive weapons sales to the right-wing extremist Netanyahu government in Israel. And I know that many of you share those feelings. And some of you are saying, how can I vote for Kamala Harris?
Pause. So it's the right position to have to want to block the arms, to say no more arms to Israel. When I say no more arms to Israel, I mean period, not just for a year, right? But something that people may not be aware of, Joe Biden already agreed to support Israel for another 10 years. See, this is the thing. And I want more people to say this. And I don't mean to like hurt anybody's like feelings. Like those of you who were thinking we can still push, you can push Kamala Harris left if she were to win. She would have to go in and she would have to destroy that contract, right? Like she would have to say, you know what, we're not going to do this anymore, et cetera. But the reality is part of the reason why they're not going to agree to an arms embargo is because they already had already made a deal for the next 10 years. There's that. Now they can break it, but I don't think that's going to happen. And then there's AIPAC, right? Which owns a lot of the politicians in DC. Now listen to what Bernie says.
If she is supporting this terrible war. And that is a very fair question. And let me give you my best answer. And that is that even on this issue, Donald Trump and his right-wing friends are worse. In the Senate, in Congress, the Republicans have worked overtime to block humanitarian aid to the starving children in Gaza. The president and vice president both support getting as much humanitarian aid into Gaza as soon as possible. Trump has said Netanyahu is doing a good job and has said Biden is holding him back. He has suggested that the Gaza Strip would make excellent beachfront property for development. And it is no wonder Netanyahu prefers to have Donald Trump in office.
And this is why I say you shouldn't support Trump either. This is exactly why. And one thing I do want to add about the humanitarian aid that Bernie's going to leave out, don't forget that leaked documents did show that Antony Blinken knew that they were not going to allow aid and supplies into Gaza. He knew that prior when he met with Netanyahu. Don't forget, Netanyahu snitched on Antony Blinken and said, wait a minute. I told you that the ministry did not want anything to go into Gaza. So Antony Blinken knew that. Now, Antony Blinken, he's part of the Biden-Harris administration, but Antony Blinken kept that information to himself, or at least between himself and Biden and Kamala. And then when there were videos showing of aid not getting in there and people starving, it wasn't until then where he got the pressure from the public and the press. Then he said, oh, it's sad what's happening there. We'll have to investigate it. But he already knew that they weren't going to let the aid in. See, Bernie is not going to mention that.
But even more importantly, and this I promise you, after Kamala wins, we will together do everything that we can to change U.S. policy toward Netanyahu. An immediate ceasefire, the return of all hostages, a surge of massive humanitarian aid, the stopping of settler attacks on the West Bank, and the rebuilding of Gaza for the Palestinian people.
So what Bernie is telling you is that it is now October 31st. So he said, if you elect Kamala Harris, we'll work together and we'll get this done for the Palestinian people. So what happens to all those people in the meantime? Isn't Kamala Harris a part of the current administration? She said she agreed with everything Joe Biden did. She said she wouldn't do anything differently. That's what she said on The View. So in the month of November and December, they're not going to get any food. They're not going to get any aid. They're just supposed to die. What happens between now and then? And why do you have to elect someone in order for those people to be treated like human beings when Kamala Harris is already a part of the administration? You see, they think that we're dumb, but we're not.
And let me be clear, we will have, in my view, a much better chance of changing U.S. policy with Kamala than with Trump, who is extremely close to Netanyahu and sees him as a like-minded, right-wing extremist ally. But let me also say this, and I deal with this every single day as a U.S. Senator. As important as Gaza is, and as strongly as many of us feel about this issue, it is not the only issue at stake in this election.
Here we go.
If Trump wins, women in this country will suffer an enormous setback and lose the ability to control their own bodies. That is not acceptable.
It's not, but this is exactly why, you should be having this conversation with Barack Obama. And I want to bring up something. People may not remember this, but remember at one point in time, Bernie Sanders wanted to challenge Barack Obama. Now, he decided not to do that. But when Barack Obama was about to run for re-election, Bernie Sanders considered challenging Barack Obama because Barack Obama wasn't as progressive as he claimed that he was going to be. Barack Obama is the reason why we got here. Barack Obama is the reason why we got Donald Trump. Barack Obama is the reason why Roe v. Wade was not codified. He ran on it. He said that was the number one thing that he would do. Now, Bernie, y'all out here pointing your fingers at voters. You're out there pointing your fingers at us. You need to be pointing fingers at Barack Obama. That's who you need to be talking to.
If Trump wins, to be honest with you, the struggle against climate change is over. While virtually every scientist who has studied the issue understands that climate change is real and an existential threat to our country and the world, Trump believes it is a hoax. And if the United States, the largest economy in the world, stops transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel, every other country, China, Europe, all over the world, they will do exactly the same thing.
Well, first of all, if you guys care that much about climate change as you say that you do, Bernie Sanders, then Kamala Harris wouldn't be supporting fracking. Joe Biden wouldn't have approved the Willow Project on indigenous land, by the way. If you guys care, if the climate issue is so important to you, you would not be supporting fracking. You would not be supporting the Willow Project on indigenous land if it is that important. You guys put corporate interests in the climate bill for fossil fuels. So how are you going to wean off of fossil fuels if you put benefits in the legislation for fossil fuel companies? This makes no sense.
And God only knows the kind of planet we will leave to our kids and future generations. If Trump wins at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, he will demand even more tax breaks for the very richest people in our country while cutting back on programs that working families desperately need. The rich will only get richer, while the minimum wage will remain at $7.25 an hour, and millions of our fellow workers will continue to earn starvation wages.
I'm sorry. What happened with the minimum wage under Biden and Harris? Wasn't it voted down? I mean, I just can't. I just can't. Why the hell? And let's think about this. Why the hell has the minimum wage been $7.25 for all these years? I think it's since 2009 or something. Why has it been $7.25 for all these years? This is not all just because of Donald Trump. You can put blame on Donald Trump where there needs to be put blame for things that happened under his presidency. But the things that happened before him under the Obama administration, that's not fair to put that blame on him for. And that's what drives me crazy. Now, I seem to remember there being a vote for the $15 minimum wage, and I seem to remember it being voted down. because you guys pulled it out of the infrastructure package and said, no, let it do it on its own. We're going to run that as a separate thing. And just as we had predicted, it would be voted down. And you know what? Of course, I expected the Republicans to vote against it, but there were Democrats that voted against it, Democrat senators that voted against that minimum wage bill. And don't forget about our convenient friend, the parliamentarian, that the president can get rid of at any time if they're not happy with them, by the way. So I can't even believe you brought up the minimum wage.
Did you all see the recent Trump rally at Madison Square Garden? Well, I did. And what I can tell you is that as a nation, as all of you know, we have struggled for years against impossible odds to try to overcome all forms of bigotry, whether it is racism, whether it's sexism, whether it's homophobia, whether it's xenophobia, you name it. We have tried to fight against bigotry. But that is exactly what we saw on display at that unbelievable Trump rally.
Did you fight against bigotry when you allowed Israelis to speak at the Democratic National Convention, but you told the Palestinians they couldn't get on the stage? Too soon? Were you fighting against bigotry then? Were you fighting against discrimination then? Come on, man. Come on, man. Bernie Sanders trying to shame you. You got to come out and support Kamala Harris. You know, Bernie does his usual. But the worst of the worst was Bill Clinton, ladies and gentlemen. Jesus Christ. I don't know why anybody thought this was a good idea. Bill Clinton arrives onto the stage in Michigan, and listen to what he said about the Palestinian people.
Let me talk about the hardest issue here in Michigan is the Middle East. And I have to be careful what I say because there's only one president at a time, and none of us can get ahead of where we're going. But I think we're going to have to essentially start again on the peace process. And I understand why young Palestinian and Arab Americans in Michigan think too many people have died. I get that. But if you lived in one of those kibbutzim in Israel, right next to Gaza, where the people there were the most pro-friendship with Palestine, most pro-two-state solution of any of the Israeli communities, were the ones right next to Gaza. And Hamas butchered them. And so then the people who criticize it are essentially saying, yeah, but look how many people you've killed in Retalin. So how many is enough for you to kill to punish them for the terrible things they did? That all sounds nice until you realize, what would you do if it was your family and you hadn't done anything but support a homeland for the Palestinians, and one day they come for you and slaughter the people in your village? You would say, well, you'll have to forgive me. I'm not keeping score that way.
So, ladies and gentlemen, here is Bill Clinton making excuses for genocide. In Michigan. Do you guys think this was a good idea? I don't think it's a good idea. Why is Bill Clinton on the campaign trail? Of all the people, why are you letting Bill speak? Horrible, horrible. Because what Bill Clinton is saying to you is he's telling you that he believes that one group is better than the other. He goes on, it's not done.
It isn't how many we've had to kill, because Hamas makes sure that they're shielded by civilians. They'll force you to kill civilians if you want to defend yourself.
That was absolutely abhorrent. That was terrible, terrible. And you should see the comments, fam. Like, if you look at the comments on it just, and Prem Thakur shared this. Like, people, this gets worse. It gets worse. I got news for Hamas. Listen to this. Jeez Louise.
Is the Middle East. Hamas did not care about a homeland for the Palestinians. They wanted to kill Israelis and make Israel uninhabitable. Well, I got news for them. They were there first. Before there was, their faith existed. They were there.
What the hell? What the hell? So here's Bill Clinton saying they were there first. What? You're going to pretend like a whole bunch of Europeans didn't come and settle in the Middle East? What? In Michigan.
In the time of King David, and the southernmost tribes had Judea and Samaria. So here's what I want to tell you. I'm going to do everything I can to convince people that they cannot murder their way out of this, neither side. You can't kill your way out of this. And they have to make a new beginning. But when I read that people in Michigan are thinking about not voting because they're mad at the Biden administration for honoring its historic obligation to try to keep Israel from being destroyed, I think that's a mistake. Because Donald Trump has shown what he wants. But Kamala Harris has said that she will try to negotiate an end to the violence, an end to the killing, and a new peace process. And that ought to be enough.
No, that ought to not be enough, because Arab American voters also were asking for an arms embargo, because if you're still giving Israel weapons, they're still going to continue to kill Arab American voters. And I want to let you know, this did not go over well with Care National. Care National posted this here. Bill Clinton's callous and dishonest attempt to justify the Israeli government attacks on civilians in Gaza was as insulting as it was Islamophobic. So they're calling Bill Clinton's comments Islamophobic. Care National, remember, they're the ones that conducted that poll that showed that the majority of Arab American and Muslim voters wanted to support Jill Stein in a good amount of these swing states, in particular Michigan. So this is not good that this statement is coming from Care National. That is very, 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 very concerning. And all I can tell you guys is 2 blunders in 1 week. That is not good for the Democratic Party, whether it's the garbage comment and it's the statement from Bill Clinton. How tone deaf can you actually be in Michigan? All right, let's get to some of the comments. Ladies and gentlemen, smash the like if you haven't had a chance to do so. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. Hey, hey, hey. All right. Let's get to some of these comments. Thank you, Trusting Success. Sabby, I meant baby biter Biden, LOL. Oh, YouTube's autocorrect is crazy. The reports of Biden biting babies are disturbing. I have not seen that. Oh my God, Biden, go take a nap. Marcus ACP was founded by the Midwestern Marks guys in Haas. Surprised you haven't heard of. Follow this development. So when you said the Communist Party, that sounds familiar. But again, like I said, I'm not interested in joining a party. Thank you, Tates. Does 10 Commandments say kill Muslim babies? No, it does not. Shout out to Joan Mayorga for becoming a Sabby member. Give Joan a big whoop, whoop. And shout out to 100 Black Roke. Talking about Barry Soetoro, right? Question mark. BlackRock has been a member for 14 months. Shout out to Jamal Johnson, who's been a member for 2 months. And to think we actually believed he would help with this Netanyahu bullied him his whole presidency. Yeah. Netanyahu's been around for a long time. Thank you, Courtney. But Obama bombed the hell out of Muslim countries. That seems more extreme than a travel ban shaming tactic that he's using. And this is what I've been hearing from Muslim voters too, is that, there was the Muslim ban, but, it's like there was the ban, there was a travel ban, but then it's like, you're killing our people. This is what I've been hearing from Muslim voters. Brody, if Kamala were to push back on Israel, it would begin with a divorce. Her husband, Doug Emhoff, is her AIPAC handler. Well, maybe she would need to get divorced. I'm sorry. Thank you, Dwayne. Kamala memoir, My Path to Success. Giving head to get ahead. You're funny, Dwayne. Thank you, Charlie. Bernie taught me just how quickly it is possible to lose all the respect in the world for someone who sells your community out. Yeah, big disappointment for me. Thanks, Courtney. They wouldn't be supporting the proxy war if they were serious about climate change. There you go. Thanks, Jason. Kamala should just use Biden's old line of nothing will fundamentally change. Thanks, Courtney. Bernie should go back to building the next best time machine with Marty McFly. Thank you, Jay. To me, Trump will look worse on Gaza only because folks who aren't paying attention to the genocide now will then just because it's Trump. The protests will be filled with wine moms and never Trumpers. Yeah, I can see that happening, Thank you, Blueser. These people are shameless actors. Linda Thomas Greenfield deserves honorable mention to this list. She's raising her hand again, now against the UN Special Rapporteur Albanese for her recent Gaza report. Her Thanksgiving table has to be empty. Yeah, could you imagine if that was like your family member? Thank you, 100 Block Roke. Bill Clinton knows he is lying. He is revealing his demonic side. Thank you, Emily. As a Palestinian, I am so sick of the lies, period. Not all of us have a short-term memory. Tired of these corporate warmongers. Thank you for truth-telling, Sabby. You're welcome. Thank you, Tron. Keep doing your thing. You deserve more success. Thank you. Look at the name Tron. Tron. What's up, Andre? Glad to have seen you on Mark Lamont Hill. Thank you. Yeah, let's get the comment on Rockfin. Hey. All right. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Dave. Thank you for your massive debunking and truth stirring up, Sabs, and also to Eric on the keys, camera, and tech wizardry. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for the Rumble rant, Goo81. What a disgusting message from an Epstein client who is saying the south of Israel wants peace when they stole their homes and even had lawn chairs with popcorn to see Gaza bombings on civilians. Yeah. Yes, they did. Thank you for this Rumble rant, Sparky. Since it's illegal for the U.S. to provide arms to a country committing crimes against humanity, a non-Zionist U.S. president would break the Israel arms agreement and lead Israel around by the nose. Interesting. Okay, we're getting into the next story here. We're going to get into some data. We're going to have some fun, crunch some numbers, throw our hands up in the air. Ladies and gentlemen, many a times on this show, I have talked about the Democratic Party's concerns about Jill Stein being on the ballot in Michigan and the support that she's receiving from Muslim voters and Arab American voters in Michigan. But there was one state that kind of slipped by me. I wasn't paying attention, but I am now. And that is the state of Wisconsin. It appears that AOC and Bernie Sanders are also now concerned about Jill Stein's presence on the ballot in Wisconsin. Let's go ahead and get into this clip here. Shout out to the wonderful case study QB in the house doing the damn thing. Check this out.
We've got far left socialist AOC, Senator Bernie Sanders, campaigning for her in Wisconsin today. Let's welcome back to the show America Majority CEO Ned Ryan. Ned, is this going to attract the undecided voters and independents? I mean, Larry Kudlow just said How does this cause results? What results does this bring? What results do identity politics bring?
Well, I think they're getting extremely nervous about the progressive vote in Wisconsin. Liz, that's why you're sending up Bernie Sanders and AOC, and it all revolves around the fact that Jill Stein, despite Democrats' attempts to remove her from the ballot, actually succeeded in staying on the ballot this year. But let me run some numbers for you, Liz. In 2016, Jill Stein made the ballot. She got 31,000 votes in a state, Wisconsin, that Trump only won by 23,000 votes. Fast forward to 2020. They successfully litigated to get her off the ballot. Biden only won the state by 20,000 votes. Fast forward to 2024. She made the ballot again. They were unsuccessful in getting her off. They're afraid that those 30-some thousand votes that she got in 2016 might go her way in 2024, and that would really be devastating to Kamala Harris's chance in Wisconsin.
That's important data. Ned, that's really important what you said.
I think Jill Stein is going to do much better this time around than she did in 2016. And I want to show you what I mean by that. We're going to start looking at some numbers here. We can go to part two there, Eric. We're going to start looking at some numbers here, and I'm going to show you why, Jill Stein really does have the ability to get to that 5%. It's not going to be easy, but when I show you what I show you, I think you'll understand why they are still heavily attacking Jill Stein. Check this out. First, it was this article here from Slate. Yes, they're really voting for Jill Stein. They're in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and other close states. Next week, they will conscience vote, even if it delivers the White House to Donald Trump. So you see this here? I want to just fast forward to this part right about here. They are speaking to Al-Mari. Al-Mari says the value of defeating the Democratic Party makes Trump a price we're willing to pay, he said, quoting an imam from a recent sermon in Dearborn, where rallies and religious sermons have encouraged their communities to conscience vote. Like others, he believes casting a vote for a Democrat would be akin to supporting genocide, and that helping Trump win would send a stark message to the Democrats. Both parties are complicit, he said. Trump, Biden, it doesn't matter. But our vote can still mean something, and we intend to make it clear. When the administration won't listen, the least we can do is vote in a way that forces them to see us. Here's another one here, Pennsylvania. Sonia Rawson, a voter in Pennsylvania, told me she felt mocked by Harris' approach to Democratic voters, a majority of whom polls show want to see a permanent ceasefire in place, as Harris continued to support Israel as it expanded its war into Lebanon. She goes on to say, I can't endorse a candidate who is promising to kill more Arabs. Every single day, we're looking at average people, children, parents with their faces blown off. We are watching it unfold. It's painful to watch. This is happening day in and day out. And it is painful to watch people so cavalierly dismissing the lives of Arabs as if we don't count. She feels disgusted when other Democrats urge her to consider Harris as a lesser of two evils. She goes on to say, it is an impossible task to ask me to have to vote for someone who is actively contributing to a genocide of people like me that directly affects friends and family. I'm not going to do that. That's the first part. Here's the second part. They actually went to Dearborn. Let me go ahead and pull this up here. Let's make sure. Yeah, I want you to see what this guy said. He went to Dearborn to talk to some of the voters. Listen to this.
Vice President Harris is struggling to gain the support of Arab American voters in the battleground state of Michigan amid scrutiny of the administration's approach to the war in Gaza. Our Ed O'Keefe spoke with members of the Muslim community there.
Michigan, one of the 7 battleground states that's going to decide who lives in the White House next year. And in this state, there's a few numbers to consider. 4 years ago, President Biden won here by about 154,000 votes. And there's a sizable block of usually reliable Democratic voters in this state, Arab and Muslim Americans who live in and around Detroit and Dearborn. About 146,000 of them voted for President Biden 4 years ago.
146,000 Arab American and Muslim voters voted for Joe Biden in 2020. That's how Joe Biden was able to beat Trump in Michigan. Remember what I told you, that support was not there for Hillary Clinton when she ran in 2016. In order for the Democratic Party to win Michigan, or for Trump to win Michigan, they need to win Wayne County. So that would be Detroit, that would be Dearborn, right? Listen to this.
So if you start to lose their support, you could potentially be seeing a loss in Michigan unless you find another way to make it up. And that is why that group of people in this state has earned such outsized attention ever since, of course, the war in Gaza began last year. We met late last year with a guy named Adam from Dearborn who voted for and campaigned for President Biden 4 years ago and was quite disillusioned by what was happening.
As a community, we're tired of voting for the lesser of two evils. If you were to ask me 2 months ago if I was going to vote for Joe Biden, yeah, I would have held my nose and voted for him.
Nearly a year later, Adam is still thinking about this issue, but has decided exactly how he's going to vote. We talked to him and a few of his friends. Did it get any easier to support Democrats when Harris became the nominee?
Look, when Harris became the nominee, for a lot of people, we felt like, okay, maybe we have an opportunity to have somebody fresh who can change things up and can, maybe shake things up in the Democratic Party. And that was quickly shot down. We saw things like they wouldn't even allow for a Palestinian to speak at the DNC.
So what are you going to do?
Personally, I'm going to vote for Jill Stein.
Really?
There it is.
Because?
Because she has called for an arms embargo. She has called for a permanent ceasefire. She has called to, for conditioning aid. Now, whether she can win in Michigan or not, whether she can win the presidency or not, it's 101% unlikely that she's going to win. But the reality is, I see somebody, I have a choice to vote for somebody that sees me as a human, that sees my family as a human, that actually cares about my community, whether she's going to win or not.
You have a choice.
Did you hear what he just said? I have a choice to support someone who sees me as a human. That says a lot. Listen to what they have to say.
In a few days of what to do when it comes to the election. I'm curious first, how did you vote 4 years ago for president?
Biden.
And what are you going to do this time?
Third party.
Jill Stein.
Write-in or third party, I haven't made my decision, but it's one of them.
So you guys hear that, right? Let me just come out here just a little bit. So he's like, dude's like flabbergasted here because he can't believe that this many people wants to support, a third party candidate. He's like, what are you thinking of? I'm trying to move forward here till we get back to this part where we were here.
Biden.
And what are you going to do this time?
Third party.
Jill Stein.
Write-in or third party, I haven't made my decision, but it's one of those two.
Write-in or third party.
So not Harris, not Trump.
No.
Did she do anything maybe to compel you to think about possibly supporting her? Or was this just too far a road to go just because of the fact that she supports the president's position on all this?
Well, the fact that she supported and is supporting the president hasn't said anything much different from him, and always says that, just because she's going to be a staunch supporter of Israel is a cause for concern. However, I was willing to give her a chance, and I was part of the uncommitted movement. But at every turn, we were rebuffed. And you just can't ask us to vote for genocide. And it's a terrible position to be in. I don't want to see Trump as president, but I cannot, in good conscience, give her my vote.
Did any of you ever consider voting for Trump?
No.
Yeah.
And why did you do that?
Because we look at this right now, and we're all over here. We've all said we're going to vote either third party or write-in. Third party or write-in for us is pretty much a loss of one vote for Kamala Harris. But if we're looking at this from a numbers standpoint, voting for Trump is pretty much, it's as if Kamala Harris is losing 2 votes, And from a number standpoint, if I really want Kamala to lose, which I do. I'd rather have Kamala lose than, I mean, I don't care what the outcome is. It's not my business, but Kamala didn't earn any of our votes. But if we really want her to lose, a vote for Trump makes more sense. But ethically and morally, I can't get myself to vote for Trump.
So you guys see what's happening there, right? You see that they're just like, no, we can't support Kamala Harris. And again, in the beginning, I think they were hopeful when it was announced that she was entering the race. They were like, okay, she seems to be a little bit more empathetic about Palestinian struggle. And then she made sure to let everybody know that she was just like Biden, that she wasn't going to move on that particular issue. So fast forward here. And we're looking at what this could look like for Jill Stein. Actually, let's go back to 2016 to show you the numbers that Jill Stein had in Michigan. Michigan alone, she was able to garner, let's come down here. Jill Stein was able to garner over 51,000 votes in Michigan, 1.1%. I want you to remember the percentage more than the number. That'll be important in a second. So 1.1%. Jill Stein and Ajamu Baraka were able to get in Michigan. So then I said to myself, what about Howie Hawkins? How did he do in Michigan in 2020? And I want you to see the difference. Howie Hawkins received 13.7K votes in Michigan, 0.2%. So as you can see, right? As you can see, Howie Hawkins came nowhere near close to the numbers that Jill Stein put up in 2016. So Joe Biden benefited from the Arab American and Muslim vote. You can see the difference here between him and Donald Trump, over 2.8 million versus over 2.6 million. That group made a difference for Joe Biden. So that's how he was able to pull that out. Now you'll also see, what about Wisconsin for Jill Stein in 2016? Wisconsin, we're moving on to Wisconsin because now I told you AOC and Bernie are starting to get worried about Wisconsin. So let's dive in and let's see how she did in Wisconsin. In 2016, she received over 31,000 votes. So 1% she received. So she performed better in Michigan than she did in Wisconsin. So this percentage here, these 31,000, this is what they're afraid could happen again. Now, I'm just going to keep it real. Jill Stein is more popular now than she was then. And we also didn't have the genocide then. And there are a number of Arab American voters and Muslim voters that are supporting Jill Stein. Many of you have already voted for Jill Stein. So those numbers are probably going to be higher. She's probably going to be able to get more than 31,000 votes in Wisconsin. She's probably going to be able to get more than 51,000 votes in Michigan. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, some of you may be wondering, well, how did Howie Hawkins do in Wisconsin? Well, remember this? Howie Hawkins was not on the ballot. Howie Hawkins won't be on the presidential ballot in crucial Wisconsin. So remember this, ladies and gentlemen, the Green Party was not on the ballot in Wisconsin in 2020. So imagine how, and granted, Howie was not a great candidate. I'm just keeping it real. So that's another reason to give them pause. That's another reason to give AOC and Bernie pause because they weren't there. Now they're there. And from what I hear, there are a number of people that either have already voted for Jill or plan on voting for Jill. Eric, do you have the PDF here? I'm trying to see. Oh, here we go. Thank you. Now we're going to look at the Atlas poll. Now, this Atlas Intel poll, when I was reviewing polls, they said this one is one of the more accurate ones. It is also it's also a little right leaning too. I want to mention that as well. But they said that this one is pretty good with accuracy. I want to show you how Jill's doing right now. Let's go to Michigan. We don't need no overview. We don't need no overview. We don't need no overview. You guys know I got to turn everything into a song. You know I got to. Okay. That was Arizona. We'll speed through. Yada, yada. And let's make our way to, well, we can always come back to Georgia, but I really want to focus on Michigan and Wisconsin right now. Michigan. Let's see how Jill Stein is doing right now in Michigan. So what you will see, for which of these candidates on the Michigan ballot will you vote for in the upcoming presidential election? Jill Stein has 1.8%. That, along with the fact that third-party candidates, we are less likely to be polled. Third-party voters, we're less likely to be polled, right? Because they don't really know. I feel like they don't really know, like, if someone is going to vote third-party or for independent. We are going to be underpolled. So just keep that in mind. 1.8% that has been polled. And that's just Michigan. And if you go back to where she was in 2016 in Michigan, she was at 1.1%. So she's already ahead in the polls of where she was in 2016. I would imagine she's going to do pretty well. So keep that in mind. Now we're going to go back and I want to show you another one here. We're going to go to Wisconsin. She's already ahead. And this is why they're scared. So let's go to Wisconsin here, which I think is further down. I think they put them in alpha order. Yeah, they did put them in alpha order. Nevada. They could have created like a, I don't know, a separate page or something. It's North Carolina, yada, yada. Oh, let me come back up. Yeah, it's North Carolina. So Wisconsin, I think, should be after this one. Nope, that's Pennsylvania. Go back. You guys could have put all this on. Some of the stuff could have been on one page. Save pages. Wisconsin. Here we go. Okay. Let's see how she's doing in Wisconsin right now. In Wisconsin, right now, she's polling at 0.6%. So let's see how she did in Wisconsin in 2016. Where am I? Am I here? Wisconsin. So she was polling at 1%. So she's not polling as high as she was in Wisconsin in 2016. But again, I would imagine this is going to increase. So they're concerned. And the reason why I would imagine this is increasing, because they're concerned. They're already concerned. That tells you something. That tells you they're seeing something internally, ladies and gentlemen, that we are not seeing. So that is important. Now, one thing I want to point out as well, when it comes to Jill Stein with Wisconsin and Michigan, we also got to remember Pennsylvania. There's also a significant Muslim population in Pennsylvania. Jill was just in Pittsburgh. I think she was, before that, she was in Arizona. She's been going all over the place. She was in Georgia. So all of these swing states, she has been there. And I think she's going to be in Dearborn, Michigan for election night. So the Democrats are worried, and I think they have every right to be. I saw that, Andy. Jill had an overflow crowd in Arizona. I saw that. Kamala's not leading in Arizona right now anyway. I don't think they really count on Arizona, but yeah. But you know what I mean? I think she's going to do better than she did in 2016. Again, there wasn't the genocide at that point in time, and she's more popular now than she was before. The Democratic Party is already, they created attack ads against Jill Stein. They hadn't done that before. And the Democratic Party has also, I don't know if you guys know this, Jill Stein has billboards in over 40 states. They're also putting up billboards to try to combat her billboards. So the Democratic Party, they're fighting against a third party candidate and Donald Trump instead of moving to the left of the third party candidate. Does this make sense to you? At the end of the day, you can't blame Jill Stein voters. You have to blame the Democratic Party for moving to the right. That's how I see it. Let's get to some of the comments here. Hey. Thank you, Pine. A TV station in Pennsylvania already put up the election results. Kamala wins 52% to Trump's 48%, all votes in. So I saw that was ABC News station. What I saw is that they said they were testing that demo for election night, and it wasn't supposed to be posted. But I saw that. We will see. Everybody just hold on and remember that percentage. Everybody remember that percentage. I will say that, but Cool Blue, thank you. Dim cries of Greens is scapegoat propaganda. Staccato, did you hear about the ABC broadcast that gave results for the elections recently? It's all rigged. Yeah. So again, that was they said that was a data thing that they were testing. I don't have any evidence to prove that it wasn't. I don't have any evidence to prove that it was. You know what I mean? So all I said was just remember the percentage, because if that is the same, then, raise eyebrows, I guess. Audra, I think this is why Jason Black attempted to sabotage his interview with Dr. Ware last night on the Black Authority channel. Jason was out of character for show. Dr. Ware was amazing. Interesting. Otis said, Sabby, can you please explain what will happen if Jill gets the 5%? I've heard the number, but I can't find the election rules. So if the Green Party gets to 5%, then they get the federal funding. So that's important, because then they can continue to be a threat to the duopoly. So that is significant. Thank you, Sparky. Because of Israel, Jill Stein will get some would-be Trump voters too. Put that with the abortion issue, and it could spell trouble for Trump unless Kamala keeps screwing up. Yeah, there have been. So I did receive an email from one former Trump supporter that told me they just voted for Jill Stein because they said the genocide was a no. So yeah, buddy. Thank you, Jasmine. That's the problem I have with these confused liberals. If I see you actively supporting the death of my people, how are you a lesser evil? There you go. Thanks, Sparky. Love you, Sabby. Great work. Thank you. Pastor Wheeler says politicians don't see black people as human as well. They shoot black people on the streets like animals. Yep, that's right. They don't listen to us either. Thank you, Cool Blue. Democrats definitely lose Michigan if they don't win Wayne County. That's part of Detroit. By a minimum of plus 35 points. Say 66% versus 31% for Republicans. Best state bellwether county is Saginaw. Thank you, Sparky. Keep in mind, Israel has killed many more Americans than Iran. Remember the USS Liberty. And thank you, Sammy73, for being a member for 4 months. Love you, Sabby. Greetings from Denmark. What's up, Denmark fam? What's up? Thanks, Cool Blue. In 2016, Jill Stein received 1.06% in the U.S. popular vote. Johnson had 3.27%. Hillary and Trump combined for 94%. 2020, Trump and Biden combined for 98%. This partly explains why Stein did better than Hawkins. Interesting. Also, Howie Hawkins wasn't a great candidate. Sorry, it is what it is. Thank you, Super Mike. Like, subscribe, share, like a Care Bear. That's right, like a Care Bear. And thank you, Jill. Wisconsin is going green big time. Chester Todd for Congress and me. Jill for governor 2026. I shamed Bernie in Milwaukee for outright lying, saying Harris will deliver health care for all. It went viral. Yes, I saw that video on Twitter. What's up, Jill? And oh, and by the way, for people saying the Greens don't run down ballots, there are, I think, 12 Green Party congressional races in New Jersey alone. There are congressional races there in Wisconsin as well. They do run down ballot. People just don't pay attention. Thank you, GB. Hey, Sabby, I voted for Dr. Jill Stein and Dr. Butch Ware, my first time voting for a third party candidate. Woohoo! What's up, GB? GB's in the house. And shout out to Joan Biaz. Love you, Sabby. Joan has been a member for 5 months. Thank you, Joan. Hey. Sup. Based. Let's get the comment on Rumble. Yeah. And then we'll get to thank you for the Rumble rants. R. Dean Dubia. Sabby Rallies. Thanks for all you do. You are welcome. Welcome. And thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. Sab, remember, RCP Senate map was 44 Dem, then crept up to 45. Now look at it. Hey, Green Party, Arab Muslim Michiganders, you missed this Senate election, but there's another one coming up in 2026. Yeah, it looks like Republicans are going to take the Senate based on what I've seen with the numbers. We're going to go over that a little bit more Tuesday while we're waiting for these results to pull their way in. But yes. Okay. Now we're getting to new polls. Yeah, we just covered polls the other day and now the polls have changed again. So forget everything you saw. We're going to keep updating here. There is now a shift. Kamala Harris is gaining in 2 particular swing states. Now, before I get to Nate Silver's polling, this video from CNN has been making the rounds, and I want to show this and I want to debunk a couple of things. First of all, there's a reason why when I show you polls on the show, I don't show you polls from Fox News or CNN News, because Fox News is heavily biased towards the Republican candidate and CNN News is heavily biased towards the Democrat candidate. And when I compare their numbers to other polls, they're nowhere near. Like none of these other polls have anywhere near the numbers that CNN and Fox News have. But people are showing this video that is showing Kamala Harris surging, basically surging. Now, I'm not here to say she's surging, but she is seeing movement in 2 particular states. So check this out, and I'm going to tell you what CNN leaves out.
We are unveiling a new CNN poll from Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. David Chalian is where else at the Magic Wall to break it all down. David?
3 polls for you today, Dana. Yes, these are our final set of battleground state polls, and today we're focusing on those blue wall states. Take a look at the overall numbers among likely voters in Pennsylvania. Dead heat tie, 48% to 48% in the biggest electoral college vote prize of the battleground map. In Michigan, slight edge for Kamala Harris, 48% to 43%. In Wisconsin, we also see a slight edge for Harris, 51% to 45%. I will note in
pause. So everyone remember, this is a CNN poll. None of the other polls, with the exception of Pennsylvania, none of the other polls show Kamala Harris leading in Michigan by 5%. None of them. I've looked at all of them. It's just that CNN poll that does that. So just keep that in mind. Again, CNN is going to be more biased towards the Democrat candidate. Fox News is going to be more biased towards the Republican candidate. So I see people showing this and just running with it and like, look, she's surging. She's surging. Yeah, you guys picked out that one poll from CNN that looks good, really great for Kamala Harris, and you ignored all the other polls. This is why I like something that Nate Silver does, because he takes a bunch of polls and puts them together and he shows the average, which is the way I think that you should do it. Now, watch this other piece they show you here.
these 2 states, the Supreme Court ruled that it's going to stay this way. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. remains on the ballot, and his presence there may be putting some downward pressure on Trump's numbers there. Let's look at the gender gap across all 3 states. You see here, I'll start down here in Wisconsin. Trump is up 12 with men. Harris up 21 points with women in our poll. That's certainly helping her there. The gender gap's helping her in Michigan. Men are tied between the two candidates in Michigan in our poll, whereas Harris has an 8-point advantage with female voters in Michigan. But then take a look here. There isn't really much of a wide gender gap. Trump's got a 4-point edge with men in Pennsylvania. Harris has a 3-point edge with women. That certainly helps explain why the race is tied there. African-American voters. Now, I just want to say, here we're comparing likely voters in a poll, which is different than actual voters that show up in the 2020 exit poll about how the electorate sort of shaped itself and how they voted in Pennsylvania. But as a comparative point, in our poll among likely voters in Michigan, Harris has a 71-point advantage among African-American voters over Donald Trump. Joe Biden in Michigan 4 years ago, according to the exit polls, won the African-American vote in Michigan by 85 percentage points. So a little bit underperformance there in this poll, but much more dramatically in Pennsylvania. Harris's lead with African Americans among likely African American voters in Pennsylvania in our poll is 55 percentage points over Trump. Biden in 2020 in the exit polls won African American voters in Pennsylvania by 85 percentage points. That is a potential warning sign in places like Philadelphia, Pittsburgh for the Harris.
Pause there. So this goes back to what I was saying before about Pennsylvania. Kamala Harris has a Pennsylvania problem. For whatever reason, and I've shown you the videos on this channel, for whatever reason, Black voters in Pennsylvania are not drawn to her the same way that they were to Joe Biden. Now, granted, Joe Biden is from Pennsylvania, so he does already have that edge. It just is what it is. But plus 55, it's not plus 55 in Michigan. So there's something happening there. I don't know. Now, I was on Mark Lamont Hill's show the other night, and Mark Lamont Hill said he thinks that she can win Pennsylvania, but he also said Pennsylvania can be kind of, once you get away from the city, it can be a different thing, right? He also said that he saw great momentum for Jill Stein at the colleges in Philly. So, but the Black thing, sorry, let's get back to the Black thing. The Black voter in Pennsylvania, the Black community, for whatever reason, is not feeling her the way that they should. And I think that is harming Kamala Harris's numbers in Pennsylvania. If she had that same amount of support that Joe Biden did, I think, she would be ahead of Donald Trump right now in Pennsylvania. But for whatever reason, Black people are not feeling too keen towards her in Pennsylvania. If any of you are in the chat and you're from Pennsylvania, maybe you know something I don't know, but these are the numbers they're showing you. Again, this is CNN's poll. So just keep that in mind.
Campaign to take a look at. And then interestingly, this is Donald Trump's base, Dan, as you know, white, non-college educated voters. And it is still his base. But he's not performing as strong as he did 4 years ago. If you compare now, in Pennsylvania, has a 27-point advantage with white non-college voters in our poll among likely voters. But back in the exit polls 4 years ago, he actually won them in Pennsylvania by 32 points. You see it in Michigan, 17. Back then it was 21 points. In Wisconsin, in the poll, he has an 11-point edge among white non-college likely voters. But in the 2020 exit polls, he won them by 16%.
So everybody see what's happening here. So again, and these numbers can change. Like Kamala's numbers can increase when we see the exit polls. Trump's numbers can increase when we finally see the exit polls. But what this says to me is that more people are choosing either to sit this one out or they are voting for other candidates. It's not just Jill Stein on the ballot. Remember, Cornel West is on the ballot in some of these states. So is Claudia De La Cruz. RFK Jr. is still on the ballot in a lot of the swing states. So just keep that in mind. And then there's another piece here that I wanted to show, the part here. Those who already voted right about here.
Most people you see here in the mid 90s, low 90s, mind made up. You see what a small percentage are still movable voters. And what about those that already voted? Now, we asked people, so among likely voters in our polls in all three states that tell us they've already voted, Harris is actually winning the people who tell us they've already voted in all 3 states. I would just say it's about a quarter in Pennsylvania and a third in Michigan and Wisconsin. Not as big a share as we saw in our poll yesterday in Arizona and Nevada, where they have a bigger tradition and a longer tradition of participating prior to Election Day.
So you know what I noticed? Number one, let's go back a little bit. Notice that they're only showing you Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. They're not showing you the Sun Belt, and there's a reason for that. We'll get to the polls and I'll show you why. Notice they're not showing you Arizona, North Carolina. They're not showing you Nevada. They're showing you the areas where they say, oh, look at where she's doing really well, right? 2, another thing that they're not telling you is that people who have already voted, they're not telling you that typically the Republican voters show up on Election Day. Keep this in mind. Republican voters typically show up on Election Day. Now, granted, they did have a surge of early voter registration, but typically they vote on Election Day. So these numbers are going to change. People are going to see this and they're like, whoa, she's way ahead of him in Michigan. Those numbers are going to change. So just keep that in mind. Again, CNN is going to lean heavily for Kamala Harris and Fox News heavily for Donald Trump. No other poll that I have seen is showing the numbers that the CNN News poll is showing. Nate Silver does a really good job of this. We're going to go ahead and bring him in here. Now, he is showing there is growth for Kamala Harris, and I want to show you in 2 particular states. So I think this is the most recent one. Let's get down to this chart here. In these swing states, what we are seeing is that, believe it or not, in Michigan, Kamala Harris has now taken the lead. So now she's at 48.3%. She's ahead of Donald Trump, who's at 47.3%. So she got an increase of +1. So she is now ahead of Donald Trump in Michigan. What Nate Silver does is he takes a group of all these polls and he takes the average. And like I said, I think that's the better way to do it, right? But she is moving ahead in Michigan, at least right now. We'll have to check again and see on Monday. What that also means is that Kamala Harris must have found another group to put in place of the Arab American and Muslim voters in Michigan. The reality is, in order to win Michigan, you have to win Wayne County. That includes Detroit. So either Kamala Harris's campaign is either picking up more African American voters in Michigan, in Detroit. Detroit is a heavily African American city, or she's picking up, as I told you, I predicted, white suburban moms that are focused on the issue of the overturn of Roe v. Wade. And I believe she's doing a little bit of both. Now, does this mean that she necessarily is going to win Michigan? No, we don't know. Michigan's a tough one for me, I got to tell you, because mathematically, I still don't see how she can win it without the Arab American vote. But I also know that not every Arab American and Muslim voter in Michigan is supporting Jill Stein or Cornel West or Donald Trump. Some of the members from the uncommitted movement have said that they are supporting Kamala Harris. So there's that as well. But this is interesting. So, and by the way, it's not just Nate Silver's prediction. There are a number of polls that I looked at today that show that she has now bumped up in Michigan. So that's one. The other one where she's moving up is Wisconsin. She now has, let me highlight this here so people can see. She now has a +0.7 increase in Wisconsin. So she is at 48.5% and Donald Trump is at 47.8% in Wisconsin. So again, it's interesting because I point this out because the Democratic Party is worried about Jill Stein in Wisconsin and Michigan, but Kamala Harris has just pulled ahead in those 2 states, ahead of Donald Trump. So that tells me something else. That tells me that either they have realized that Jill Stein is going to get more support than she did in 2016, or they've realized that more people are going to stay home. That's what that tells me. Just looking at the data here. And then you'll also see Donald Trump is increasing in Pennsylvania, plus 0.8. He's increasing in North Carolina, plus 1.3. So as we can see, I think this is why I told you guys, I think it would be really hard for Kamala to win North Carolina because Trump keeps increasing, right? 1 second. To give you an example of comparison, the CNN poll had Donald Trump, has Kamala Harris winning in North Carolina now. No other poll I've seen shows that. So keep that in mind. In Georgia, Donald Trump is increasing plus 1.8. You can see that there. Arizona, this is why they're not talking about Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia like they were, because he's just gaining. Arizona plus 2.4, Nevada plus 0.5. You see how he's picking up there? I don't know why they have New Mexico, but New Mexico's not a swing state, but I guess he's just showing different things as well. Or why they have Florida here or Texas. But the reality is, as you can see, Kamala Harris has now increased in Michigan and she's increased in Wisconsin. That was not the case when I went over the polls with you the other day. So things are changing, right? And you can see here, you guys, Nate Silver always shows you where he gets his information from. Atlas, New York Times, Senegal, Emerson College, etc. And you can just, there's 55 pages of this, but you can scroll and see. It's like he puts a bunch of different ones together. So I think that's interesting to check, right? Now, there's something else, and that's the independents. The last time we checked the independents in this particular race, Kamala Harris is beating Donald Trump with independent voters, and that could be what it comes down to at the end of the day. Check this out. Trump versus Harris still knotted up, but voters prefer Trump policies on big election issues. What I want you to see here is the number for the independents. In a head-to-head matchup, Harris leads Donald Trump 52% to 36% among independents. So that was the last time we saw how she was doing with independents. That was early October. That may have changed now. I haven't seen a new one yet. But at the end of the day, this could just come down to the independents, right? Because we really don't know how they're going to go. All these different things. Then there's this issue of Virginia. Now, Donald Trump apparently says he sees momentum or a possibility in Virginia. I don't really agree with that, and I'll show you why. But this happened, and I don't know if people saw this. Apparently, Donald Trump sees surge in support among Black Virginia voters in a new poll. Let's see how this goes. Here it says, in a survey of 1,014 Virginia likely voters, 183 of whom identified as Black, the Republican nominee garnered 32% support from Black voters. So that is interesting. It says polling conducted by the group from September 19 to September 22, which included 197 Black voters, saw Trump receiving only 15% of the vote. So somehow, some way, he is seeing an increase of Black voter support in Virginia, of all places, which is interesting. But there's something else with Virginia. Again, I told you Donald Trump says he sees Virginia as a path, and this could be part of the reason why. This ruling that came down from the SCOTUS, if you guys haven't seen it, you're going to see it now. Governor Youngkin apparently has won his case with the Supreme Court. And how will this affect voters in Virginia?
We have breaking news now from the Supreme Court, which is allowing the state of Virginia to move ahead with a purge of its voter rolls. This is after a lower court had found that the purge was happening too close to Election Day. Let's get more from NBC's Ken Delaney and fill us in here, Ken.
Yeah, Anna, the conservatives on the Supreme Court are allowing this purge to go forward that not only a federal district judge, but the appeals court deemed was illegal under federal law after the Justice Department sued Virginia. And the issue here is that federal law says you can't purge voter rolls within 90 days of an election. Virginia is saying that these people are all non-citizens based on a form that they filled out at the motor vehicle department. But there have been validated citizens among these people who have talked to reporters and showed them their passports. There are U.S. citizens among these 1,600 people, and they have now been purged from the voter rolls. Now, Virginia.
Okay, so everybody heard that. So there was a form that voters completed in Virginia, and apparently Governor Youngkin said the results, I guess, of that form determined whether or not they were citizens. And so he wanted them removed from the voter registration, and he took that to the Supreme Court, and they voted in his favor. So that makes me wonder. I was reading that Kamala Harris has been pouring more money into Virginia. I wonder if that's the reason why. I don't know. We don't know if all those people were citizens or not. I don't know what's happening up in there. But I do know that Virginia has been blue since 2008. So I don't see Virginia turning red. And I'll show you right here. You can see also other polls. Every poll I've seen for Virginia does not show that Donald Trump is in the lead. Kamala Harris has a pretty significant lead ahead of him in Virginia. Everyone I've seen shows this. So I don't know, unless something drastically changes, I don't think that Virginia is going to be red. That area, that DC Beltway area, listen, I'm from the DMV, my family from the DMV. That area outside that DC Beltway is heavily blue, heavily blue. That includes Arlington, that includes Alexandria, that Northern Virginia area where a lot of people live, heavily blue. So that says that about Virginia. But now there's something else that Jamal Thomas mentioned. I don't know if everybody knows, but Jamal Thomas is back. Like he's on Sputnik radio, but he's back on his YouTube channel talking about this election, and he's had some things to say. There's something else that is happening here. It says not persuasive. Harris Super PAC circulates an internal poll. Listen to what Jamal Thomas had to say.
And even in some of the reporting in Axios, they were saying that people were at that point looking around thinking who they're going to blame when she loses. You don't run campaign ads against a third party unless you're having difficulties in your campaign and you're deeply concerned that even the most thinnest of margins is going to be somewhat of an issue. The 1 or 2% that Jill Stein will get will be something of an issue. Those are things that you do when you are getting very desperate and the time is running very short.
Yep. Everybody hear that?
They continue. It says Future Forward said in the same email that her opponent, that wasn't working. Instead of it urged Democrats to focus on Vice President's proposal on the economy and abortion rights and to set up a contrast with Trump on these topics. Quote, purely negative attacks on Trump's character are less effective than contrast messages that include positive details about Kamala Harris's plan to address the needs of everyday Americans. Attacking Donald Trump's fascism is not that persuasive. Adding Trump exhausted isn't working. The plan that you have come up with in the closing days is not working. Now, to be fair to Kamala Harris, she's just given a speech where she's given her closing arguments. These are basically the final theme, the final narrative in the campaign. And as I've said before, it is far better for you to come up with a thematic reason that you're in the race. And oftentimes, either on CNN, either in many of her interviews, anything that you bring up to Kamala Harris, within a few seconds, she's talking about Trump. And again, if you are talking about somebody that is a defined quantity, you are not going to shape that person. I give an example. When Obama was running.
Yeah, I just wanted to stop it there. And I just wanted to say, Jamal Thomas, again, great voice. He hosts radio show, Fault Lines. Great voice, was a part of the Bernie movement. One of the people I used to watch like religiously before I got into independent media. And he is spot on there. This strategy of let's just attack Trump, apparently, according to internal information, is not working. It's not sitting well with people. It's not resonating with the American people. You have to tell people about you. You have to tell people what you are going to do. Everybody knows who Trump is. That's the thing. Like we already know who he is. People want to know who you are. So I think that's a failed strategy. And then there's this. Is the country going in the right direction? I think 28% say no. 28% say no. Watch this.
I think that this sort of gets at a problem for Kamala Harris's campaign. Just 28% of Americans think the U.S. is on the right track. And I want you to put that into perspective, right? When does the average, when the incumbent party loses the election, look at that. It's just 25%. That looks a heck of a lot like that 28%, right? That currently think the country is on the right track. When the White House party wins, i.e. Kamala Harris's party, the Democrats, 42% on average think that the country is on the right track. This 25% looks a lot more like this 28%. It doesn't look anything like this 42%. This, to me, is a bad sign for Kamala Harris's campaign. The bottom line is it looks a lot more like a loser than it does like a winner when it comes to the country being on the right track.
But I want to jump in here and I want to say this, because those people who were polled who said the country is not on the right track, they may still support Kamala Harris. Like they may feel it's not on the right track and they may just blame Joe Biden for that. There are some voters out there that are like that. That doesn't mean they're not going to support Kamala Harris. Either way, though, that is still a bad look. This is another reason why they should have had an open primary. This is another reason why it was important for Kamala Harris to detach herself from Joe Biden and explain to people why she was different than him. Kamala Harris did not do that. She has not successfully done that. And that's how we got here. Think about it. That's how we got here, folks. Listen to this part.
Can an incumbent party win with numbers like this?
Yeah, so if we look historically speaking, right, and we say, okay, say the U.S. is on the right track, the incumbent party, when they win. Today, again, it's just 28%. Look throughout history, right? 96, 88, 04, 12, 84. In all of these instances, far more than 28% thought that the country was on the right track. 39 was the lowest back in 1996. We got upwards of 47% in 84. Of course, that was a blowout, right, for Ronald Reagan. So there is no historical precedent for the White House party winning another term in the White House when just 28% of the country thinks that we're on the right track. John, simply put, it would be historically unprecedented.
So you hear what he's saying? Based on history, the incumbent party wouldn't have a path to victory based on the responses of the polls. However, this election is different. I always want to give you guys the other side of the story as well. I want to tell you what they're not telling you. The reality is Joe Biden is not still in this race. Joe Biden was the incumbent. He dropped out. So what's different, and this is why I keep saying it's hard to compare this election to 2020 in some ways, or even 2016, because the incumbent president dropped out of the race. And that's going to make a difference. Kamala Harris was appointed. Again, there was no open primary. There was no primary for Democrat Party 2024. So she was just selected. Will that affect her negatively or positively? You know, some people are not too happy about that. And some people just don't care. They just don't want Trump there. But this presidential election is not like the other ones that we have experienced. So just keep that in mind.
Is there any good news or interpretation or prism you can look through where Democrats can say, well, maybe it's okay?
Okay, so let's look back to the last midterm, because sometimes history is made to be broken, Mr. Berman. All right, say the country is on the right track in midterms. Democrats had a good midterm despite this. The old low for the country saying that we were on the right track was 27% back in 1994. Of course, that was a blowout, right? The Republicans romped over the Democrats and Bill Clinton. But this particular past midterm, look, just 26% said that the country was on the right track, and Democrats did pretty gosh darn good. Maybe we've entered a new political environment where Donald Trump is so unpopular that these historical norms, these historical measures that we look at don't actually mean what we think anymore. I'll tell you this much. Kamala Harris better hope that's the case, because otherwise this right track, wrong direction situation will not work out in their favor.
Also, 2022 wasn't a presidential election, right? 2022, those were congressional races. So just keep that in mind. Okay. Now, let's move on, because again, I still think there's something I want to point out here, and kudos, because one of you reached out to me and you said, please take another look at Professor Allan Lichtman's keys. And there was something that I noticed. We're going to pull up here. Now, he makes these predictions about who's going to win the White House. Apparently, he's never been wrong. They call him the Nostradamus of this, etc. But I noticed that Allan Lichtman, it seems like for some of his keys, the definition changes. And so we're going to apply that to 2024. Now, we will see here in 2020, he predicted that Biden would win. I think 2020 was a little bit easier for people to predict because, you know, we had the pandemic and you guys know about all that, right? He predicted that Biden would win. Now, one of these keys in particular, I'm going to highlight because I know what he said about 2024, and I'm going to tell you why I disagree with him. Let's go on.
Professor predict elections? Well, he doesn't look at polls. Instead, he looks at the party currently in the White House and then these 13 keys ranging from the last midterm election to the economy.
Any 6 or more turn against the party holding the White House, they are a predicted loser.
Even though Election Day is still several weeks away, Lichtman says he can make a prediction. And because of the midterm elections, the economy, social unrest, scandals, and others, that's 7 strikes, and he believes Joe Biden will win.
Pause. Let's go back to this prediction right here. The 7 strikes that were against Donald Trump, right? The midterm gains, strong short-term economy, strong long-term economy, no social unrest, no scandal, major overseas achievement, uncharismatic opponent. The one I want to focus on is no social unrest. That is where I disagree. Allan Lichtman, when he was interviewed by Chris Cuomo, he said the pro-Palestinian protest does not qualify for social unrest. But in 2020, he did consider the George Floyd protests to qualify as social unrest. Here's the problem. The George Floyd protests were large, international protests, but the pro-Palestinian protests are larger than the George Floyd protests. The pro-Palestinian protests are still continuing today. People have been protesting for a year. The George Floyd protests started to die down. They started during the summer, and then they started to die down rather quickly. So the question I have when it comes to Professor Lichtman, and I invited him on, by the way, the question that I have is, it seems like to me, because I've gone back and I've watched other videos, it seems like you are changing the definition about some of these keys depending on the race. Because if social unrest does not apply to the pro-Palestinian protests and the encampments and the police brutality that went along with that, why does the George Floyd protests go with that? This is something I don't understand. I don't understand that. So it seems like some of these keys change. And plus, I heard from the grapevine, he didn't come up with these keys anyway. I heard from the grapevine from someone in DC that he got this from someone else. So what's really going on? And let me show you. So here's another one. This part right here. And again, I agree with he didn't get the midterm gains. I totally agree with all that stuff. But if we were to apply that to the current administration, and considering that this is not a normal election, you know, he said he doesn't look at polls, and he said just based on these keys that Kamala Harris is going to win. And she still could. It's a possibility. However, it seems like to me, you're changing some of the definitions of your keys. Because how does a protest that was smaller than the pro-Palestinian protests qualify for social unrest, but the pro-Palestinian protests don't qualify? I don't understand that. Kim Iverson just actually uploaded a video where she don't agree with some of his keys either with this particular election. And so, and I'm sorry, like those protests, you can't say that was a little thing We're talking 500,000 people going through DC and everything. People have been protesting since after October 7th, 2023. People still protesting. There was just the anniversary protest. So how can you say that's not social unrest? So I don't believe that. And I question that. There's something off about that. But given the numbers, the new data that we just got, now we're going to go in and we're going to play 270 to win. We have to make some changes. So, and again, I don't know why this map keeps changing on its own. Like when I put the link here, these are all tan. And then when I come back to it, it's like filled in, man. What the heck, man? I want to play with the swing states. So now that we have new information, new polling information, let's come back and make our adjustments, shall we? We are going to start with the Sun Belt here. So Arizona, again, Donald Trump is making big gains there. Also, the immigration issue there is a big one for people in Arizona. So I still see him winning Arizona. I think something really big would have to happen for Kamala Harris for her to win there. I really do. Plus, Jill Stein was just there, like yesterday. Nevada, I'm still giving towards Donald Trump based on the polling numbers. All right. Georgia, I showed you he's trending. He's still going up in Georgia. So we're handing Georgia over. North Carolina, he's still increasing based on Nate Silver's predictions, still increasing in North Carolina. Okay. And I said that CNN poll again, nobody else has those numbers that the CNN poll has. However, Kamala Harris is increasing. She's ahead of him now in Michigan. So Michigan is going to be light blue. And she's ahead of him now in Wisconsin. So Wisconsin is going to be light blue. And that would mean that all Kamala Harris would, if this holds on election day, all she would have to do is get Pennsylvania, and that will bring her to the 270. It is possible. And I really believe we got a poll, right? We got a poll, Roger? Yeah. Or Eric? Yeah, we got a poll. We have a poll about this because I want you guys to start asking some questions. I told you guys before, it just looks too easy for Donald Trump. It just like it looked easy for Hillary Clinton. It looks too easy. And it almost makes me wonder, is there a possibility that Kamala Harris supporters could be underpolled? Is there a possibility that some people that may live in red areas that don't feel comfortable saying that they're supporting Kamala are going to secretly support Kamala Harris? This is something to think about. So I'm asking that question because we really don't know until election day. But based on what I'm seeing, it looks too easy. Jennifer said, maybe, we never know. We never know. One thing I did see that is interesting. There are a number of Trump signs in Massachusetts, a lot that I'm not used to seeing. But Massachusetts is still going to be blue. But I'm noticing that more now. So all she would have to do if this holds is get Pennsylvania. But right now, Pennsylvania is still kind of leaning. They're saying they're tied. I'm looking at the numbers for all the data. He's still gaining. We can go back and look at Nate Silver again when it comes to Pennsylvania. Where are we? Here we go. Pennsylvania. See, last week, all the gains are for him. If you notice, it says last month, plus 2.1. This week, plus 0.7. Here's the margin here, plus 0.8. He's gaining. She's not gaining. So that can change. But right now, we would still give that towards Donald Trump. And that would put him at 287. And if she wins Wisconsin and Michigan, that would put her at 251. Some of you are asking, can she win without Michigan? She can, but it's not easy. If I take Michigan away and I give that to Donald Trump, that means that Kamala Harris would have to pick up North Carolina, which could be possible. And she would still need another state. She could pick up Georgia Even if she got Georgia, North Carolina, and Wisconsin, that's still 268. This is why it is important for the Democrat candidate to get that blue wall, because once you go outside of that, it's harder for you to gain everywhere else. And remember, Joe Biden did not win North Carolina. North Carolina hasn't been blue since Obama 08. And I lived in North Carolina. It's hard. I'm telling you, that was a one-off. Now, it has changed over the years, but you notice Obama didn't win it back. So that's going to be a tough one. I don't mean to scare you, Bridget Denise. I don't mean to scare you. I'm just giving you the data. The polls are changing, right? So we will look at this again. I will post another video probably Monday or early Tuesday afternoon. I'll look and see if there's more information with the polling to see what it is there. What I don't want to happen is for people to assume that, oh, well, Donald Trump's got this. He's just going to blow her out and, F Kamala Harris because of the genocide. Because when it looks too easy like that, sometimes that means it probably is too easy. The biggest thing for Kamala Harris is going to be turnout on election day. And that is one of the things Professor Lichtman did say. He said she will win, but people have to come out and vote. So if Kamala Harris gets a lot of support on election day, that could change things. So we'll have to wait and see. But let's see what about that poll. Let's see what that is about. I wonder, man. I just wonder, man. I got a feeling there's some hidden Kamala supporters out there. I ain't gonna lie, man. I think there's some Kamala supporters that maybe are against the genocide and they're not telling people that they're going to support Kamala because they know it's going to be frowned upon. How much you guys want to bet? Let's look at the poll. Are the polls underestimating Kamala's support? 14% said yes. 47% said no. 16% said possibility. And 22% said, I have no idea. That's 2,436 votes. So remember that, guys. Think about it. There are some people that do not support the genocide, are against the genocide, want a ceasefire, want an arms embargo, but are still supporting Kamala Harris. And some of those people may not feel comfortable being vocal about that. And those are the people I wonder about. Those people may not be in these polls. Makes you wonder. Makes you wonder. Okay. Let's go to the comments. Hey. Shout out to Buckets of Toast for becoming a member. Buckets of Toast. Bucket of Toast. Thank you, Joan said voted for Stein. Whoop, whoop. And thank you, Claus. There's no doubt the Dems are gonna rig it, Claus says. I hear a lot of people saying that. Thank you, Dre. Sab and Stein 2028. Let's go. Damn it. Oh, no, not Sabrina. Sabby, not politician. Thank you, Cool Blue. 2020 margins in leading bellwethers. Michigan was Dems plus 2.78. Pennsylvania was Dems plus 1.17. And Wisconsin was Dems plus 0.63. Biden won the U.S. popular vote by plus 4.45. I think Dems/Harris will underperform 2020 margins in nearly or every state. Interesting. We'll see, man. We'll see. Thank you, Lainey. Tomorrow in New Jersey, I plan to vote Green Party down the line. Jill, Rudolph, Christina Khalil for U.S. Senate and Stephen Welser for U.S. Congress. What's up? Based, Lainey. Based. Thank you, Waco. Philly has a lot of Muslims, especially Sunni and Nation of Islam Muslims. So that's probably why she may not be, her numbers aren't where Biden's were. Thank you for letting me know, Waco. Thank you, Lauren. Sabby, Nate Silver is QA Dem bias stats guy. I don't think any of these stats are straight. I think a lot of it is PR for rigging the election. Well, Nate Silver said he predicted Trump is going to win. Just FYI. Thank you, Cool Blue. Watch for details in polls with any Democratic overperformance and Republican underperformance. ABC had a recent poll saying Harris nationally leads by +4 and Trump is +6 with men. In 2020, he was +8. Yeah. And I don't see any other ABC poll, not that besides the APC poll. I didn't see any other poll that showed she was leading by 4 points. See, that's another thing, you know. Jacqueline said, I live in Virginia. I believe it. Interesting. Cool Blue. Harris does not lead Trump with the independent vote, much less her 52% versus his 36%. If she leads by that much, she wins with the 2020 Biden map, a popular vote margin of at least +5 and a pickup of North Carolina. Interesting. Thank you, Natalie. Sabby, Sputnik is banned now in the USA. Jamal and Malik lost their jobs. What? Oh, no. I had no idea. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Okay, I have to reach out. Thank you, Croder. Don't forget about non-Arab/Muslim pro-Jill S people. That's right. Thank you, New York. That pic behind you with all the journalists. Wanted to wallpaper it for a new podcast called Undivided. Do you have a link or a way I can get a hold of it? And love the show today. Yes, it's on. Yes. Give me time to go through my email. I could probably get it to you next week because I have that link in my email somewhere. The Zago brothers created that. Thank you, Sparky. Giuliani lied about Reagan saying that Israel always has our back, so we have to have Israel's back. Reagan told Israel to F off in a major way at least twice when he was president. I know, right? People just make up things about people after they died. Thank you, Cool Blue. In 2020 for gender vote, Biden won females 7 points better than Trump with males. I think 2024, Trump may reverse that versus Harris. This is how you can have a popular vote margin of Democrats +4.45 to Republicans +2.50 to +3. Interesting. Thank you, New York. I was asking my friends who are voting for Harris, name 3 swing states you think she'll win. They struggled, Sabs. I know. It's hard for me too. I'm just going off of the data. Because we don't know what's going to happen. Thank you, Cool Blue. Some people who try to figure out election outcomes in advance find Allan Lichtman sus. Really? Likewise, Larry Sabato of Crystal Ball University of Virginia. Interesting. Thank you, China. Hey, Sabby, he doesn't take account for failure overseas, Gaza, third party civil unrest. So he's not being truthful. Yeah, this is what I was telling people. Like, he's just changing his own definitions. And thank you, Cool Blue. If Kamala wins, Democrats hold U.S. Senate. Historic pattern. In presidential elections, when one or both houses of Congress switch party control, it or they go to the party which won U.S. president. I think Republicans are going to win the Senate based on what I've seen so far. And if they win the Senate and Kamala wins, that means she's not going to be able to get a lot of these things done. That's just a reality. Resurrect says Jamal has his own YouTube channel from 7 to 10 a.m. That's right. And thank you, Unemployed Scholar. There are 40,000 Filipinos in Michigan. Nonstop Kamala ads targeted to Filipinos. Interesting. Let me go pick up another group of color, they said. All right, guys, smash that like button if you haven't had a chance to do so. Thank you so much. And I am going to cover one ballot measure. I do have to try to get out of here rather quickly because I have to get up very, very early tomorrow to get on the train. But we are diving into Nebraska, ladies and gentlemen, and I think some of these ballot measures are interesting, guys. There are a number of states that have a woman's right to choose on the ballot this November, as well as ranked choice voting, so we got to pay attention to these. Nebraskans. The citizens of Nebraska have a direct, which meaning after a successful petition, drive the initiatives go straight to the ballot with no stops at the legislature. So they have direct initiatives. So this is one of the states that it's easier to get things done. I was going to tell you, like, if you can bypass the legislature, that's great. Let's see what they got going on in Nebraska. Hey. Okay, Nebraska Initiative 434, prohibit abortions after the first trimester amendment. So here we go. Here's one of those for Nebraska. A yes vote supports amending the state constitution to prohibit abortions after the first trimester unless necessitated by a medical emergency or the pregnancy is the result of SA or incest. Abortion is currently legal up to the 12th week of pregnancy in Nebraska state law. So if you're in Nebraska, pay attention to that. That's an important one. And let's see who supports it. Protect Women and Children supports this. They're sponsoring it. Nebraska Catholic Conference, Nebraska Right to Life, Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America, to name a few. One of the arguments here from Protect Women and Children Nebraska. Voters are excited to have a sensible alternative that reflects Nebraskans' common sense approach to limits on abortion, protects women's health and relationship with their doctors, and preserves parental notification requirements that save lives and protect vulnerable minors. There is no opposition. I'm very surprised there's no opposition to this. Interesting. And there is 7.1 million campaign contributions spent to support it and 6.7 million to oppose it. So that's close with when it comes to the money. That's why I was surprised there was no vocal opposition to it. Interesting. All right, we're moving on to the next one. Moving on up to the east side. Note here from Roger says this is already the law. All this would do is cement this into the Nebraska Constitution. So that's a way of them trying to protect what they already have there. And he said he finds it strange there's no opposition. I was saying the same thing. I'm kind of surprised by that too. But maybe people just weren't paying attention. Nebraska Initiative 436, Paid Sick Leave Initiative. What? A yes vote supports requiring Nebraska business to offer earned paid sick leave for employees up to 7 days for businesses of at least 20 employees and 5 days for fewer than 20 employees. Well. See what I was telling you guys? Like some of these progressive policies that we supported through Bernie Sanders, they are passing. They're just passing in the states. They're not passing on the national level. But these things are happening. We passed it here in Massachusetts too. It goes on to say that eligible employee means any individual employed by an employer in the state and does not include an individual who works for fewer than 80 hours in a calendar year. I mean, that makes sense. Employers with fewer than 20 employees were required to provide 40 hours per year. And employers with 20 or more employees would be required to provide 56 hours. So interesting. What would it cover? Employee mental or physical illness, injury, or health condition, care for a family member with a mental or physical illness, injury, or health condition, closure of the place of business of a family member's school or place of care due to an official public health emergency. There's that. And the need to self-isolate or care for a family member due to the exposure of a communicable disease. So it says, who supports this? The Nebraska AFL-CIO. What's up? Also, the ACLU of Nebraska and the Women's Fund of Omaha, Planned Parenthood, Advocates of Nebraska, to name a few. One of the arguments is working families are the engine that drive our economy. What? Paid sick leave helps hardworking Nebraskans and businesses and means people won't have to choose between the paycheck and they need and their family's health. There's no opposition to this. We might need to move to Nebraska, ladies and gentlemen, since people aren't opposing anything. I don't know what's happening. No opposition to this. Wow. There's over $3 million spent to support it. $0 spent to oppose. Interesting. Very interesting. And 437, medical marijuana legalization initiative. A yes vote supports legalizing the use of up to 5 ounces of marijuana for medical purposes by qualified patients 18 years or older with a written recommendation from a healthcare practitioner or a patient younger than 18 years of age with a written recommendation for a healthcare practitioner, as well as written consent from a parent or you know what? Just legalize recreational marijuana. Nobody has time for all this red tape. I get that. What are you doing? Well, what are you doing? Just get over this. I'm sorry. This is ridiculous. It's 2024. It's 2024. What are you doing? Jeez Louise. I don't get it. So anyway, they're trying to legalize medical marijuana in Nebraska. It also goes on to say here that you can only possess and acquire up to 5 ounces of marijuana to alleviate or treat a medical condition. Who supports this? State Senator Anna Wishart, former State Senator Adam Moorfield, Nebraska Families for Medical Cannabis. And one of the arguments here from Nebraskans for medical marijuana change or campaign, the facts are clear. The sky does not fall when patients have safe, legal access to medical cannabis. 36 states have implemented these kinds of programs, and no state has ever repealed their medical cannabis law. Opponents of medical cannabis do not have the facts on their side, so they resort to scare tactics. Who opposes this? Former State Senator John Kuhn. Okay, you didn't say why you oppose it. Like what? we gotta go to Nebraska, man. See what's going on there. There's over $1.4 million spent to support this. $0 spent to oppose. Interesting. Well. Good point here from Roger. This works in congruity with the next initiative. For this one to be effective, the next one must pass as well. Okay, this is important. Medical marijuana regulation initiative. A yes vote supports repealing penalties for possession, manufacture, distribution, delivery, or dispensing of marijuana for medical purposes and establishing the Nebraska Medical Cannabis Commission to regulate the medical marijuana industry in the state. So both of these have to pass, you guys. See, this is why sometimes people don't like to have it where it's like 2 measures go together. But in order for the medical marijuana legalization to pass, this one has to pass. So just FYI. Who supports this? State Senator Anna Wishart and Adam Moorfield, New Venture Fund, and Nebraska Families for Medical Cannabis. One of the measures here is this is why we fight so hard for safe access to medical cannabis. Colton has life-threatening seizures and has been told by medical experts that cannabis could save him. His mom, Krista, has been leading our effort and fighting for her son for 7+ years. This must be the year we succeed and let Nebraskans vote on this issue. Yeah. Who opposes this? Former State Senator John Kuhn. And you know what's funny to me? A lot of these politicians that oppose like legalization of marijuana, you know, you go back to their college days and I'm pretty sure they had a little bit of smoky smoke. I'm sure they had a little smoky smoke. You know what I mean? And there is 1.4 million spent to support this. No money spent to oppose. Really good point here from Roger. As said with previous initiative, this one works in congruity with the previous initiative. Although I'm very suspicious of when elected officials appointing people to serve on task forces, commissions, and other regulatory bodies, I think they should either nominate and the people confirm The election officials ask us from communities across the state to send them who they think should sit on these regulatory bodies and commissions. And 3, maybe this one, just have them take civil servant tests and choose the ones with the best scores. Because usually these elected officials will just put their buddies in there that they owe favors to. That's a good point. Here's another one that deals with a woman's right to choose. 439, right to abortion initiative. A yes vote supports amending the state constitution to establish a right to abortion until fetal viability. Okay, so you see you have 2 of them for Nebraska for abortion. Who supports this? ACLU of Nebraska, Nebraska Appleseed, Planned Parenthood Advocates of Nebraska. And one of the arguments is there are so many reasons why someone may make the deeply personal decision to have an abortion. Most Nebraskans agree that the government should not be involved in personal decisions that are better left to patients, their faith, and their healthcare providers. Who opposes this? The Republican Party, as you can see here. Also, U.S. Senator Debbie Fisher and U.S. Senator Pete Ricketts. So you have U.S. senators here that oppose it, as well as Governor Jim Pillen. The Nebraska Family Alliance, Nebraska Right to Life, Priests for Life, Students for Life oppose. And U.S. Senator Pete Ricketts said, we must continue to lay the ground for a society in which abortion is not an accepted answer to an unwanted pregnancy. We can say the line is drawn here and no further. There is this one's going to be tough because there's 6.7 million to support it, 7.1 million spent to oppose it. So that's close with the spending. And I told you before about with the way the money works with these ballot measures. Typically, whoever has the most money, that's the side that usually will win. So, but that's close with the money there. Okay. And then we have the private education scholarship program referendum. This is a repeal. A repeal vote supports partially repealing a bill 1402, which authorizes that the state treasurer to administer an education scholarship program, but would not repeal the part of the bill that repealed 753, which enacted a tax credit for taxpayers who contribute to education scholarships. Interesting. So it says here, who is defined as an eligible student? So this is anyone that is receiving an education scholarship for kindergarten, 9th grade, or 1st grade level, offered by a qualifying school, a student transferring from a public school to a qualifying school, a member of the active military family transferring into a state and attending the school, a student who received an education scholarship under LB 753, a sibling of a student who has already received an education scholarship, and a student of a qualified school whose family income does not exceed 213% of the federal income poverty level. Interesting. Who supports this? State Senator Lou Ann Lehan and Nebraska Family Alliance, Omaha Catholic School Consortium. One of the arguments here, no matter how much money opponents of school choice spend or how many signatures they collect, supporters of school choice won't stop fighting for parents' rights and for our kids. And who supports this? Democratic Party of Nebraska, Nebraska State Education Association, the League of Women Voters of Nebraska, NAACP Lincoln Branch, Nebraska Civic Engagement Table, for example. One of the arguments says, since last summer, we've collected more than 200,000 signatures from Nebraskans who believe that voters should decide whether public funds should be used to pay for private schools. The incredibly short timeline was a huge challenge, but Nebraskans wanted to sign this petition, and many were appalled that LB 1402 was passed to block citizens from voting on this issue. Interesting. There is 3.2 million spent on this measure, and 1.5 million spent to oppose. That's interesting. Well, folks, and that is Nebraska. Nebraska on my mind. Nebraska. Pardon me. Okay. That's Nebraska. Thank you, China. It's almost midnight. Mariah Carey is coming. Which she's coming where? Where's Mariah Carey coming? Interesting. All right. That's it for me, guys. Again, look for possibly video upload, exclusive video upload Monday and Tuesday afternoon. And other than that, I will see you live again Tuesday night. I'm out of here, fam. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.